just do a quick summary. Anastasia thinks that Sleepy Hill here has American privilege, that not all ethnostates are bad. I disagree, obviously. I think all ethnostates are bad because I know what the implication of ethnostates is. I know what ethnostates have historically led to, and apparently Soipel's definition of ethnostate is very American and privileged, and most, if not all, states apart from America are ethnostates, which I highly disagree with. But let's hear the arguments and let's see where this goes.
Quite a lot of Americans, in particular Westerners, bring this up. So it's not like even like I'm like singling you out in that sense, like everyone's singling out Israel. Okay,
Yeah.
I have a gripe, right? Because
Yes,
I was arguing
I'm
with
the
all of them.
surrogate for all the dumb Americans, the dumb ignorant Americans. I'll take it.
Yeah, kind.
Look,
kind.
I've
So yes, I am finding myself disagreeing a lot.
I've traveled to Europe. I'm used to it. Okay.
You are representative right now, the ambassador, if you will. So yeah, that's his, so the thing is with ethnostate, to make it like super simple, right? What we typically think when we hear that word is that is a country that operates as a state based of the shared ethno-religious language and cultural principle, and it is concerned with the preserving of the hegemony of that certain political or that certain cultural principle, the shared country. That what we typically think when we hear that word is that is a country that operates as a
It's a country that privileges one ethnicity over all others within a set border. Okay, that's it.
State based of the shared ethno-religious language and cultural principle, and it is concerned with the preserving of the principle of the shared ethno-religious language and culture.
What the hell is ethno-religious principle? There's no such thing as an ethno-religious principle, and language is absolutely not tied to an ethnicity.
Cultural principle, and it is concerned with the preserving of the hegemony of that certain political or that certain ethno-religious group, right?
No, that's not what an ethnostate is.
So
Okay.
this
is the definition one then. So it's like there's some sort of like cultural unity, whether that's language or like
typically
shared
it's like
tradition,
ethno-religious, typically, right? So it's like ethnicity and religious kind of like tied down together. Not so much in the modern times.
No, ethnicity and religion has never been tied together. That's nonsense.
But like typically it's like depends where though. If it's in the Middle East.
No. I'm sorry, but no.
Then that's tied down, obviously. But in Europe, it's not as much. But still, majority people would be like Catholic or like Christian, like
Yeah, that's not tied to ethnicity.
Orthodox or whatever the fuck, right? So you have like this ethnic majority, and you have a religious majority typically, and language and culture that is preserved in there, and the state is sort of built around this. Okay. So the unifying principle is this shared identity, if you will, right? And this state typically.
No, the unified principle is not a shared identity. The unified principle in this case is ethnicity, hence ethnostate. If it was just identity, then ethnicity would not matter. Ethnicity is not an identity.
Typically is very concerned with the preservation of that, right? Sure. So that keeps being the hegemony, that keeps being the majority, right? And that's the broad thing. So the problem I have with this definition is that if that's the definition you use, then it's everyone.
Yeah. No, it's not. No.
It's Poland, it's fucking Sweden, it's really any country,
No, that's not true. That's not true at all, because Poland is not interested on a state level of in preserving a majority Slavic thing.
It's
like anybody can come to Poland and try to get citizenship.
Ukraine, it's countries in Korea, Japan, it's every Arab country, basically. It's almost every country except New World countries, which would be based on a completely different principle, like United States, right? It's a civic nationalist principle. You have a
Ukraine has a civic nationalist principle. If you learn about the history of Ukraine, you will learn that you had two competing schools of thought, the ethno-nationalist school of thought and the civic nationalist school of thought. And in Ukraine, that one has won, which is why Anna, that is ethnically Greek, is Ukrainian. If Ukraine operated on a ethnic principle, Anna would not make the cut to be Ukrainian because Anna is ethnically Greek.
nation, you don't have a ethnicity that shows you as an American. You didn't even have the language, I think, official language that
Zelensky would not make the cut. Zelensky is Jewish.
Until like Trump declared it, I think, English or some shit.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Like, would you say like pre the massive immigration changes, like in the 60s and 70s, that like all the neo-Nazis get really upset about? Like, would you say that we would be closer to that definition, where you have more of a Christian majority nation, you have more of a white majority nation, and it kind of has moved away from that?
And yes, by the way, the United States used to be an ethno-state, absolutely. It had so many laws on the books that made it an ethno-state. What about slavery? What about redlining? And all the other things? No, the United States absolutely has been an ethno-state in the past.
Since then, to a much higher degree.
That's very American talking point.
No, it's not an American talking point. It's a factual talking point. America had laws on the books that made the white ethnicity, quote unquote, the European ethnicity, Anglo-Saxon in particular, supreme over all others. Like, what the fuck? It's not an American talking point. It's just a factual talking point.
Because we wouldn't say that French,
hello, Glitchmaster,
German, Irish,
right, because it's
and
white.
English
yeah,
are
it's all
people,
the same thing.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Anastasia now is just conflating nationality with ethnicity, which is a silly thing to do. It's a silly thing to do, to conflate. Yeah, the Germans and the English are not the same people, but no, there are still of Germanic ethnicity, if you want to go that route. People of the same ethnicity can form different countries. So no, it's not an American talking point. You're just conflating ethnicity and nationality now, which is a silly thing to do.
So, yes, so it's not the same ethnicity, it's not the same language, it's not the same culture, not the same. Yes.
Ethnicity and language are not tied concepts. Ethnicity and language are not intrinsically tied concepts.
Yeah, that's kind of ethnicity. It's not the same language. It's not.
And yes, you could make the case that all that all people of Germanic descent are the same ethnicity.
Not the same culture, not the same. Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of like even not the same religion in some cases, right? So that's kind of like.
Also, ethnicity does not have some inherent culture. Ethnicities don't have some inherent culture, okay? Because Polish people, Ukrainian people, and etc., like Belarusian people, we're all ethnically Slavic, and we don't have all the same culture and the same language. Surprise.
The shared identity that when established in the United States and the New World countries, right, the ethnicity wasn't the unifying principle. You escaped, actually, your own countries mostly, right, your own homelands, and turned to settle in a completely different.
Before the nation states, countries in Europe also did not have this tying principle of ethnicity, believe it or not. That was created with the nation states.
Space altogether, with the, quite unfortunate nuking basically everyone there to do it, but, that's a whole other situation, right?
Sure.
So you established yourselves there, and then you created a national identity. This, like, badass Reagan speech comes to mind, like, everyone can be American, but no, everyone can be German, and it's true, it's true, and it's cool.
Yeah, except before that, America absolutely just privileged Anglo-Saxons and made everybody else not equal to that. So no, America at some point definitely was a non-ethno-state.
I mean, used to be cool, I guess. I don't know if Americans think it's cool now, but yeah, used to be cool.
We're still
anyway,
number one, okay?
that's number one. Yeah, so that's kind of like makes it.
Oh my god. It's like the blind leading the blind again. I hate it when this happens.
Possible to demonize Israel on that principle, because then you have to fucking demonize every other country that isn't
Right.
basically New World countries, and maybe India. Okay, I think India.
Yeah, I will gladly demonize countries that form ethnostates. Yes, I will gladly demonize them. It's stupid for Poland to try to preserve some ethnic majority. Yes, I say yes, yes. I have no problem with that.
Have like doesn't have like a have such a big diversity in terms of like ethnic
Also, anybody can become Polish. So what kind of an argument is that?
groups there, religion. I don't think one is like even primarily one.
My two best friends were Vietnamese. They're Polish. They are Polish. They have the citizenship. They have lived in Poland for most of their lives. They're culturally very Polish. Nobody can tell me otherwise. Nobody can tell me that they're not.
If I'm not mistaken, I might be mistaken.
Well, yeah, it's
but,
super diverse. They have all these different languages. The primary is like
Yeah, yeah,
Hindi and in English actually to an extent. But yeah, it's
Because
it's,
of the
it's-
colony, yeah,
I know what you
yeah.
mean.
But does come to mind the only country, but primarily I think about New World countries, so like Canada, America, or Australia, whatever.
But yeah, I'm in
So
alignment
anyway,
here. It is too vague to just say, oh, you have a shared culture and
Yeah.
language and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, you can
It's very. Could it be language thing to confuse race and ethnicity? It could be. But Anastasia here is also conflating ethnicity with nationality, which is ridiculous.
do that, and you can say, for example, hey, mine is based, right? I think like the American version is based. Obviously, that's I don't want to argue that. That's opinion, right? But at the end of the day, like it's just weird to demonize particularly Israel, because then you are rating that everyone is allowed except the Jews. That's kind of like me. It goes into the uncomfortable zone
Yeah,
real
if
fast.
That's not true. Israel has very specific laws on the books that discriminate people that are not of specific of a specific ethnicity. So actually, it's not wrong to to point out Israel. Like, I'm sorry, but Israel has on the books laws that people from Gaza receive a different legal penalties than Israelis. So it's ridiculous. I'm pretty sure that Israelis are forbidden from marrying people from the Gaza Strip. No other countries does things like this. No other countries do. No other countries actually try to preserve this artificial majority of an ethnicity like Israel does. In Poland, if you live long enough, you can just get a citizenship. There is no quota of how many people can get citizenship. Right? Again, Anastasia would not make the cut if Ukraine was an ethnic state. Yeah, they do have a death penalty that exclusively targets Palestinians. No other country does something like that. So Israel is in fact quite unique in that case.
if you're
in my
being that
opinion.
vague and it's like,
Yeah.
why are you only specifically calling this one out as an ethno-state? Then it's like, yeah, I agree with this. Okay.
No.
So what's the
Yeah,
second
so-
one? Then?
No, it's
That's kind of
stupid.
how we.
My goodness, please educate yourself on this stuff. Israel has very specific laws on the books that other countries simply do not, in order to preserve an ethnic homogeneity.
Use it, by the way. So in
We-
that sense, if some people here, I mean,
Okay.
so if people would
Wait,
say
are
like,
you?
yeah, I mean, not ethnically, but nationally.
Oh, you're
you
actually
know,
not?
no, I mean, not really. I have, I'm mostly Greek,
There
and I
you go.
Wait.
also have Russian and Polish. So
Hold on.
there you go.
If you're
Have Russian. No, I mean, not really. I have, I'm mostly Greek, and I
Wait.
also have Russian and Polish. So
hold on.
there you go.
Wait, hold on. Anna is partially Polish?
If you're Greek, Russian, and Polish, and you define yourself as Ukrainian,
Yeah, but
it's
nationalist principle. Yeah.
on a nationalist principle. It's like it's not really
Yeah.
like this ethnic.
So it's not an ethno state then. There you go. It's come on.
Like, I guess we'll get into this. So what we're talking about, like, is Ukraine like considered like this ethno state in the same definition that
No, no, it's not.
we're going to use, and like whether or
Yeah.
not that's good or bad. But it's like it sounds like you're.
A disclaimer: I'm
whatever.
not actually an ethnostate big guy. I'm like civic nationalist. I enjoy my civic nationalism. Okay.
There you go. Well then, so what's the okay? Why is this discussion even being had?
Okay, so I'm not arguing for everyone to be like super rigid about for the ethnic principle, right? Because, for example, I am not ethnically Ukrainian, but I was born here. I have a Ukrainian, citizenship, and I am Ukrainian in the national sense, right? But if I would speak about like ethnicity, blood, all of that DNA, who my parents are, then I'm not. So
Right.
yeah,
And just this
that's
is
a
a
whole other
comment. We don't have
subject.
to dig into this yet, but like what you
Yeah.
just described,
So what's the argument then? What is the concept? What is the contention then?
which is you not being ethnically Ukrainian, but being able to come to Ukraine, be a nationalist for Ukraine, make your
That means that it's not an ethno-state. Yeah.
entire identity and career about
I was
protecting
born here,
and
though.
serving this country. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like as a child of immigrants, right? It sounds like no.
Hmm?
Or you're the
Child
you're
of
the child of immigrants, of Albanian and Greek immigrants.
It's a bit no Albanians, but it's a bit complicated because like basically in the Soviet Union, everyone who was like occupied by Soviet Russia, they were like all made part of the one big thing.
Right.
So
Well,
technically, my parents kind of like moved from Georgia, that was under Soviet Union, but it was Georgia before it was under Soviet Union, and that was Georgia now after the Soviet Union dissolvement. So technically, they moved to Ukraine from Georgia, but at the
but
time
this is
it
all the
was
same
one...
place at the time.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, it
Well,
kind
what
of
I'm saying
makes it...
is like what I'm
Yeah.
principally opposed to, like the whole reason I was saying.
So it's not an ethno-state. Thank you. The discussion should be over. This is where the discussion should end. Thank you. We agreed. Ukraine is not an ethno-state. And also, I don't sure where the American privilege comes in here.
saying in that conversation.
So the
is that
conversation's over.
It seems to me that
No, it's not. It's 13 minutes out of 2 hours.
people would use this justification of like shared culture, shared ethnicity, shared language to say people like your parents can't move into this place because they're not the original thing. We need to restrict the amount of those people that can come in, even though you're a clear demonstration that at best these people can become even more nationalist than some of the people born here, and like still support the project of the country and the culture and like all of that. So that's what I'm like principally opposed to, in case that wasn't clear. But
Yeah.
let's
So
go.
this brings us to the second definition, because you very smoothly brought us into that subject, right? So
Okay.
I found like one of my notes on my phone, which is
Oh.
kind of funny because I actually wrote it down on paper
Okay.
with like a granny. So basically, right? The second definition that is way less broad in terms of like more. Let me find which one I am actually doing here.
Yeah.
So we can see it, because I think I write it down. The one I remembered. Yeah, the other one would be basically that this one is a bit more demonized. I feel like it's kind of like nationalism in the United States is used pretty like negatively typically. The state where citizenship rights
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of nation states. So
political power is restricted to one ethnic group.
Okay.
So basically, this is another version of ethnostate that I found a lot of people use, right? So not
Sure.
only it's the nation that is the state that is interested in preserving the hegemony and makes certain policies to preserve that hegemony. This state is restricting the rights, the ability to be in the positions of power, to be like in the parliament or like government, whatever it is in the country, right? To a particular ethnic group and minority.
that's also stupid, by the way. It is very extremely silly to say only people of certain ethnicities can be in the government, which is not this is not a restriction that Poland has, by the way. It's not. There are people of many different ethnicities in the Polish government.
Ethnic groups don't really have that many rights or protections that apply to them as the one that apply to the big ethnic group, right? So
That's extremely stupid. There is no logical justification for this. There's no legal justification for having this legal separation of who can and who cannot enjoy full rights. It's a restriction we're trying to bring back here in the States. Yeah, ridiculous.
that's kind of like how also a lot of countries function.
No, it's not. Poland definitely does not function like this. I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna Google it right now on my phone. Does Poland restrict what ethnicity can take office in government. No, Poland does not restrict what ethnicity can take office in government. The Polish constitution guarantees that all citizens are equal before the law, regardless of their ethnic descent, and have the right to accept public service. There is no such bullshit in Poland. Hello, just here to watch a trash fire. I'm watching a trash fire just for you, so I'm great. No, I just know that I know that there are Polish politicians. There are Polish politicians that have high offices that are of Ukraine descent. Interestingly enough, that have Ukrainian roots.
Day, and it's also how most empires functioned, right? So great example would be like Ottoman Empire, for example.
Yeah,
It's
but
a huge
empires are
fucking thing, right?
shit. Empires are even more shit than nation states. Should we really use empires as some kind of criteria how these things should function? Well, that's great that most empires function like that, but who cares? Who cares about empires?
Conquested a bunch of people, Arabs, Turks, they're Armenians, Greeks, blah blah blah, all sorts of people, different religions, different ethnicities. Only Turks had the absolute privilege there, right? So every other group was subjugated, wasn't allowed to be represented in any like leadership positions.
Pretty sure. Okay, I'm pretty sure that was a bit more complicated. Hold on. No, positions of power in the Ottoman Empire were not exclusively held by ethnic Turks. While the Ottoman dynasty was Turkish and Turks formed the core of the administration, the empire was a multi-ethnic, multi-religious entity that often recruited its ruling elite from conquered populations. So that's not true either. Non-Turks held high-ranking positions throughout most of the empire's 600-year history. So no, that's not even true. For the end.
Have to pay completely different set of how it's called
Tax.
money you have to pay to the government.
Taxes.
Tax. Yeah, basically. Yeah, so they have a completely different set of rules. What was allowed to do, what the position. That's what basically that, right? And in modern countries, you see that. Obviously, you see that in Arab countries, for example, quite a bit of them have the rule that, for example, you cannot be governed by not-Muslim guy.
Yeah, there was
in your country. It's not
and
possible,
so it's
right?
a spectrum too, right? Because like in America, technically, the president can't be a non-citizen, but this is not restricted to an ethnicity. Like there's no American ethnicity. It's just like, hey, you should have been born here, sort of thing.
Yeah, although I highly doubt that people would be jamming with non-Christian fucking president in the United States, but probably not on law, right? Not on like actual. I don't think there's a law, right, in the United States that says that non-Christian guy cannot be a president of the United States.
There is no law. There is no such law in Poland either, that the president has to be Catholic, because you also have this magical thing called the separation of church and state.
Yeah. Real quick, I got a super chat from Prince of Salatus. Thank you for the 5. And do you agree that Crimea belongs to Kazakhstan?
Kazakhstan? No, absolutely not. Yeah, Tatari, Crimean Tatari, the indigenous population of Crimea. Yeah, I would agree with that. So
no, I think he's joking because it's like the whole Crimea belongs to Russia. I just picked a random country nearby. And it's like, actually, you know what?
What about Greeks? What about Greeks who are also a native group to Crimea, and many other groups, because there were actually a lot of different peoples that were native to Crimea that were chased out by Russia. It was not just Tatar.
It's Kazakhstani. It's Kyrgyzstani.
Wait, my guy. Actually, I would rather them than Russians, if we are honest. If you play that game. Sorry, what I was talking about? Oh, but yeah. So by that restrictive definition, doesn't apply to Israel either, because
yes, it does.
Well, rather the first one applies, but it applies to everyone else as well. But this one doesn't.
No, it does. No, neither it applies to everybody.
Apply because first of all, I'm not super educated. Okay.
You're not.
But as far as I am aware, that in Israel there are 2 million Arabs, and those have the exact same rights as Jewish Israelis.
That's true. Where do I have? I have notes here. My God. Let me see. I actually have notes about this. Where is it? International law. Article 34 states that the Hebrew versions of laws will be the guiding version, which disregards Article 82 of the Palestinian Order in Council, which states that both Hebrew and Arabic are official state languages. 1994 Knesset law in the opening session of the Knesset excerpts from the Declaration of the Establishment of the State of Israel will be read out to emphasize the exclusive connection of the state to the Jewish people. 2006 Criminal Procedure Law. This law removes a number of essential procedural safeguards for detainees suspected of security offenses and is used solely against Palestinians. There you go. Also, the right of return has been restricted only to Jewish people. There you go.
Yeah, I'm also not super educated, so I won't speak on authority. My
So
understanding is
that's not true. That's not true at all.
there are well, there's definitely like second-class citizen type stuff in settler territory, like West Bank
That's a whole
area.
other thing. That's
But-
occupation. Yeah, I'm not talking about
Right,
that. I'm
but
talking
in the
about
country
the
itself,
Israel
I think there
problem.
are like
Yeah.
biases. I don't know if there are like specific laws in the book. Someone's
Yeah, but
gonna
not on the laws.
start looking at me.
Biases will be always there. Okay, it's inevitable. When there is a big majority population,
Sure.
it's really inevitable. But I'm talking
Again,
about
grain
the
of salt.
laws.
I haven't
Yeah.
looked into this recently. But what I was
Yeah.
gonna say.
Yeah, law of return is restricted to only Jewish people. That alone is. There you go.
Okay, what I wanted to bring up, because like this is a spectrum, right? Like you would say, even by the second definition, America was never really an ethno-state, right?
America absolutely was an ethno-state by the second definition.
No.
Like there's
I
not
would
even
say
like
so.
an ethnicity to protect at that point, and like saying
Yes, it is. The Anglo-Saxon ethnicity. What the fuck? That's an ethnicity, isn't it?
white is so America-centric. But
Anglo-Saxon,
I
you
would say
idiot.
something like the Chinese Exclusion Act, where it's like, hey, we are limiting specifically Chinese immigration, even though it's not an ethno-state. This is like an ethno-state kind of policy, and so this
no,
is
it's a
like
discrimination against a particular group. That would be
Uh,
basically. You could call it racist. You could call it a discrimination, but it's not gonna
You
be.
can say the Germanic ethnicity.
Banning migration is not an ethno state in my opinion.
Sorry, what?
Banning migration, but it's not gonna. That would be basically. You could call it racist. You could call it a discrimination, but it's not gonna be. Banning migration is not an ethno state in my opinion.
in and of
even
itself.
It is. I think it is. Quite honestly.
In and
Or-
of itself. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
So,
it
yeah, like-
requires it because like the reason for doing so is to protect that ethnic majority, and if it's not that, then it's like that's I guess what I'm
Yeah,
getting at, where it's like
depends on the reason. Yeah.
yeah, it's like okay, maybe
Okay, so what are the reasons that are not ethnocentric?
they're specifically discriminating against Chinese people, but it's not because they want to protect a majority, it's because they want to discriminate against Chinese, and
Yeah,
these things
but
are
let's-
not necessarily linked, but could be.
Yeah, let's go there in a second. But also one thing about like Israel is
Yeah, you discriminate against minorities to preserve the majority. So those are pretty linked, intertwined, I want to say.
well is that not only those Arabs have the exact same citizenship, so that definition just doesn't apply because they have the same rights. They're
Do they? Let me check. Okay. Right of return is the biggest example. Oh, wow. Arab citizens have equal rights on paper, but they face systemic discrimination and differential treatment by law compared to Jewish citizens. Laws covering land ownership, citizenship, and language have been described as discriminatory against non-Jewish citizens. Whoops. Well, that goes out the window very quickly. Whoops.
also represented in the Knesset by 21%, I believe. No, wait, they're 21% of the population, and I think they have
20%. And it doesn't change the fact that discrimination happens.
19 or 20 seats. So technically, they are represented pretty accurately
Technically.
in the governing body, which, by the way, America does not have. You have more African American population when you have a percentage of them represented in your Congress. So that's really not the argument. So
can
my
I ask
whole
this? Because
thing is-
again, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
uneducated, but like this is my understanding.
Yeah.
Me as a non-Israeli, also not Arab, just an American Jew, because I have
Oh, you're
Jewish
Jewish.
ethnicity.
I didn't know.
am.
I thought it was
uh,
memeing.
No, I really am.
Okay, okay.
Pretty much a name only, right? Like I don't, which just makes this argument a little sillier to me. I have no
Yeah.
cultural ties. I don't speak Hebrew. You never had a bar mitzvah. It's literally
That's
just
great, but there are many Jewish people that never spoke Hebrew.
because my mom is Jewish and my great grandpa was the last one to even remotely do anything close to this. But because of this, I would have an easier time becoming a citizen, and acquiring land or having some sort of privileges
Israel,
In
yeah,
Israel, yes. Which is
Yeah, sure, yeah.
in Israel. And like this
Yeah.
is like on the law,
of return.
yeah,
technically
but that's
not,
What's
hey,
wrong with
Arabs
that,
are
though?
discriminated against, but I get these privileges by virtue of being the ethnicity Jewish.
yeah, that's fine though. No,
No, it's not.
what's wrong with that? Like most of my
Well, it's not
neighbors
about
who
saying whether or not it's
migrated to
fine. It's like this is to the point of like, oh well, Arabs aren't discriminated against, like they're equal in the law. It's like, well,
Yeah.
not really. Like
No, they're not really, because they cannot they've been chased away from their homes and they cannot return.
as someone that is in exactly the same position as me in America, but is I don't know, Saudi Arabian, they would not be able to do this. And so that is like an
yeah,
example
but
of what I would say is like the
that's
law
not
privileging.
discriminated.
Yes, it is. If you were chased away from your home and you're not able to return because the right to return is just exclusive to one group, then yeah, it's discriminatory. It's like saying, oh, heterosexual people can get married, but gay people can. But that's not discrimination against gay people. Yes, it is.
No, that's privileging. That's not discriminating. Okay. So, for example, if
There you go. There's no discrimination against gay people when they cannot marry. It's just that heterosexual couples are privileged. There's no discrimination going on. It's the same logic. Literally the same logic, which I aggressively disagree with. And actually, people use that argument.
a guy in Israel is Arab, he has the exact same rights as.
Yeah.
So if he didn't, then that would be a restrictive ethnostate by the second definition, right? But just encouraging people from other and giving them privileges from traveling to Israel and getting citizenship just because they're Jews is not really. Like it's not.
Yes, it is. Because people that lost their homes are prohibited from returning, definitionally.
It's not. It's a preserving the hegemony. The first definition, right, was we are preserving the hegemony. So by wanting people of Jewish descent, right, from all over the world to come to Israel and to become citizens of Israel, you are.
Oh, you've lost your home, but we cannot return because you're of the bad ethnicity. That's discriminatory. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit.
Preserving that hegemony, right? It's something
Right.
that they actively want to do.
what-
But like, why
are we not?
loading
Do we
that?
count it as discrimination if it's like, okay, some random person with no ties to Israel that is not Jewish in America can't do this? Maybe they never want to. Sure, but like the fact that I can by virtue of nothing but my ethnicity, to me that is at least positive discrimination towards me. And if for some reason this person did want to, and we both went to
Okay,
apply
are we gonna ignore the fact that there are people that have been thrown out of their homes in what is now Israel and they cannot return because they're the wrong ethnicity? That's discrimination. That's negative discrimination against them.
for this, and they would say, no, you are not this ethnicity. To me, that is discrimination. That is saying you are not this thing that we prioritize as this hegemonic state, as Jewish state. Therefore, no, we don't want to give you the same privileges. Like,
Okay,
and
that is
Well-
discrimination, yes.
Well,
whether or not
wait
you
a
agree with
second.
that being
If
a
I-
good thing is different. But to me, that is like a very clear distinction as to who is being prioritized, who is getting more rights.
Yeah, but we just agreed that it's at the beginning. I thought that just simply prioritizing and creating conditions for preserving the hegemony without like straight up cleansing people or fucking tossing them somewhere, right, is not really. It doesn't apply just to Israel. Like you can't just acquire citizenship in most countries easily, right? So
Yes, you can. In most countries, oh yeah, you can. The criteria is living in that country for a set amount of time. You actually can, technically speaking, acquire citizenship quite easily in most countries. If the only criteria is spending time in that country, which is the case for Poland, right? We're gonna do this with AI as well, but criteria for getting Polish. I'm pretty sure AI can handle this. Getting Polish citizenship in 2026 generally requires legal residence 3 to 10 years, marriage to a citizen up to 2+ years, or Polish ancestry. The most common paths are recognition by the voivode, residency based, or confirmation by descent. So residency based. You just spent some amount of time in Poland. Recognition as Polish citizen, most common. Fear route requires a permanent residence permit for at least 3 years. Stable income, ownership of rental home. Sorry, but this is just nonsense. This is just a nonsensical claim.
So, for example,
But is it based on ethnic things, right? Like so, like
No,
Yeah, but
it's not. It absolutely is not. Gaining citizenship. I can only speak for Poland, and Poland is one of those countries in the region of the world that Anastasia is talking about. So perfect that I happen to be a non-American person from this part of the world.
the
For example-
project is I'm Greek. I got Greek passport because I'm Greek.
Yeah.
So I traveled to Greece, and they were like, "Base, you're Greek, get your passport." That's
yeah,
it. So
I
what's
understand. So
different
yeah,
with
okay.
that
So
pro-
if we're talking specifically about acquiring citizenship, sure, it would be easier for me to get a German passport because I have a German father, and I could get dual citizenship or like
Yeah.
have some sort of like land rights.
Exactly.
I think the extent to which
But it's not based on ethnicity. It's based on citizenship. If your parents had a specific citizenship, then it's easier for the children to get that citizenship. It's not based on ethnic grounds.
this is different from Israel is not just, hey, you have a parent that was born in this country, right? It's
Or had a citizenship, right?
basically ethnically based. So
My father wasn't born in Greece. So,
wasn't?
Nope. So it works the exact same way. You basically have the in Greece, right? There was this big project because a lot of people, similarly to Israel, left Greece due to Turkish, wars and occupations and all that shit. So a lot of people, for example, my family back in the way back, right? They escaped occupation of Turks, and they ran to what was at the time Georgia, Russian Empire at the time.
Yeah, and guess what? A lot of people were thrown out of Israel and they cannot return.
Right?
I'm
And then-
surprised Soipel will not.
A lot of people scattered in
Yeah.
Ukraine, in Russia, and all sorts of things. Mostly because they shared similar religion, like Orthodox Christianity, and similar ties. Many people chose to run to Russian Empire at the time, right? So because of that, they started living in those places generationally. Multiple people were born, right, and that completely different part. Then Greece became independent. They are their own country. They also returned a bunch of things, a bunch of territories. Some didn't. Obviously, we have a lot of strife between Turkey and Greece still, but it's a whole other subject, right? And they really wanted to do this to basically stimulate those Greeks, right, who left, to return to Greece now. So this is basically the exact same fucking thing because a bunch of Jews.
No, it's not. It's not the same thing because a bunch of Palestinians were thrown out of their homes and they just cannot return, even though they should be treated like those Greeks by that logic. The same situation, but they cannot return. They just cannot. It's impossible for them.
Jews left, as way fucking back, but they left Israel because of the all the Arab shenanigans. So
Right.
technically, Arab people were at the time were the colonizers, the settlers. Then Arab lived there
What? I'm sorry, what the fuck?
for so long. At the time were the colonizers, the settlers.
Thank you very much, fake Kyle Parker, for the $50.
Then Arab people, Israel, because of the a bunch of Jews left, as way fucking back, but they left Israel because of the all the Arab shenanigans. So
Right.
technically,
I'm sorry. Were the Romans Arabic? I'm sorry. I have to Google it. Maybe I'm illiterate because Soipel just nodded. What caused the first Jewish exodus from Israel? Babylonian conquest of Kingdom of Judah. The Babylonians were not Arab. Fuck me.
Arab people were at the time were like the colonizers, the settlers. Then Arab lived
What?
there for so long that now it's like stupid to make the fucking to say like the Palestinians don't belong there, because obviously they do.
So why can't they return? There you go. Anastasia is very close to pointing out this discrimination of Palestinian people not being able to do the right of return.
They lived there for fucking 1,000 fucking years, right? So at this point, it's like it's a complicated subject. But the same thing here. Like my father was invited, right, to get a Greek passport essentially, just because he was ethnically Greek.
Yeah,
didn't
it had nothing to do with his like prior citizenship. It was literally just
No,
based
he
on
didn't
his like
step
yeah.
the-
No, I'm just
he didn't
clarifying. I'm not
step-
like arguing or anything, but yeah.
100, honey, I'm just explaining. Yeah, that's it's exactly the same thing technically. I mean, based of the same logic even. And he went to Greece. By the way, not only he was born in little village in Georgia, but he was also never spoke Greek, because they lived in a part of the that was Turkified. So all of my family spoke Turkish instead of Greek. So he didn't even know the language, but he was still invited, and he traveled there, and he got the passport, and I now also could as his daughter, basically, right? And because my father was proved to be Greek ethnically and had the lineage, I could also get the passport. So my mother cannot, by the way. She
wow,
cannot.
okay. Even if
Because
she's
of the
married.
Yup. So that's like, yeah, so this is not me even saying what is your take on this. This is me just providing you that that it's
Yeah, but Palestinian people cannot do that, even though the exact same situation applies to them.
not something like extremely unique that only Israel does.
So yeah, that is actually unique to Israel because it denies that right to certain types of people based on their ethnicity.
So that's kind of why I'm
Whoa.
a little bit
Wacky.
miffed.
Yeah. Okay.
that
No. So
people just,
yeah. Let's make a distinction here. So just the concept of like someone being ethnically close to whatever the majority or the historical majority of a country is, allowing them easier access makes sense to me. I don't think this is the
Yeah.
only thing that would.
Yeah, but Palestinians are denied that. That's discrimination to me.
You would need to require to be an ethnostate. I don't think Germany doing this is like, well, I'm an ethnostate because I say Germans can, have easier access to this in the same way I do. The idea, though, that it being tied more to the ethnicity for restrictions and acceptance, I think goes a little beyond that for Israel. So correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe we both have to look this up. Do Arab Israelis have the same privileges as someone like me, like some American non-Israeli Jew, to
No.
have this acceptance back into the country?
No. No, the right of return does not extend to Palestinian people, for example.
Arab
Jews
Jews,
that
Arab Jews,
are-
not Arab Israelis, excuse me.
Yeah, I got confused. Sorry. I believe if you're Jewish, it doesn't really matter. You can be like Ashkenazi, you be Mizrahi, which would be Arab,
Hold on, I think there is also discrimination against other types of Jewish people because I have notes here on that as well. Actually, I do have notes. Systemic discrimination in Israel has left Ethiopian Jewish immigrants distressed as they persist in their struggle for equal rights. Whoops. Well, there we go.
but Jewish, right? I believe I'm not 100% certain, but I never seen anything saying that they are not allowed to return to Israel from other countries, for example, like, I don't know, Lebanon or like some other in the Middle East place,
about
right? It's not just
Palestinian
the right
people?
of return of European Jews, okay? I don't believe that it's the case. I believe if you are Jewish and you can, show it, then you have this like privilege to basically go there and acquire the citizenship and shit like that. So yeah, I don't know. As far as I'm aware, again, I never heard otherwise.
This is something
at
I
least.
would have looked up earlier and made sure I understood exactly what is not allowed.
Yeah, but
hold on,
this is
hold on, I
all-
got a super chat. Maybe this is a clarification. This from Kilo $5. The Israeli Constitution explicitly guarantees the right to self-determine exclusively to Jewish people. Okay.
Yeah, but you
Well,
can be
that's-
Arab Jewish though. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think
It's the same thing I said, but I
You're
think
right,
they
you already
also
said
be
that.
considered Jewish. Yeah. So yeah, it's not like just Ashkenazi were allowed that. I don't believe that's the case. If someone has like proof otherwise, they can provide it. But I don't believe that I ever heard this. I do speak with a bunch of Israeli people who moved from Ukraine, so but I don't think that's the case. Anyway,
so. I guess like what I would try to
Yeah.
get at is the things that I have a problem with. It's not that maybe it's a little easier for certain
Okay, do they really not know about Palestinian people having a restricted right to return?
people. Even if I do think it's a little
Oh
silly.
God, they're
that
both just, it's like the blind leading the blind.
if a
Well, let's
Palestinian,
talk about this, by the way. Why do you think that's silly?
so like
I'm just
if a
curious.
Palestinian who wasn't ethnically Jewish, let's say a Palestinian American even, to make it more close to my situation, who maybe their family, came from that area, maybe there was a diaspora, maybe they moved away, I don't know. If they want to go
Or
back
were
to
kicked out by the Israeli state.
that land and they want to, immigrate, it's harder for them, despite them having a historical context, maybe family that still lives there, a connection to that land. It's harder for them to get in than me, who has zero connection, but because my great grandpa was a certain religion and ethnicity in Europe in 1910, this gives me a right over them. That is something I think is just a silly
And
policy.
that is discriminatory against Palestinian people, by the way.
It doesn't
Wait. Why it's silly? I get that you think
Right,
it's silly.
I think it's silly
You just-
because
you explained
right.
the
It's silly
policy, but
because
you didn't explain why it's silly.
you are now saying
It's
don't-
silly because there were people that had homes in Palestine and have no right to return. And it would be like, it's the exact same principle as with the Greeks.
don't really care what your connection to this place is. I'm specifically just trying to prioritize this culture, this mindset. And
That's the goal, though, right?
No, I understand that's the goal, but
Yeah, and the goal is stupid.
Yeah.
the issue I have, right? So like, this is the American-centric version, right? Like, I would never say
No, it's not the American-centric version. It's stupid no matter where you live.
we should start ideologically testing people who come in. Obviously, you want to make sure they're not like terrorists, but past that, like, if I'm an American citizen and some crazy right-wing Republican Christian nationalist is an American citizen, I would never make the argument that like either of these people should be excluded on the basis of ideology from being able to live in this country. And it seems to me that some, especially the way Israel does this, but like, Germans giving priority to people with ethnic German backgrounds to say, hey, it's easier for you to become a citizen here. Okay, like I understand this, but they're not saying, well, also you have to follow these German cultures, and even you don't even have to speak German for me to get that. For me to get like a blue card and like become a citizen once I'm there, there's some language requirements, but
to
like
get it, by the way. You don't have to. Like
Right.
all of my friends migrated
It's
to
great. Again, there were people that were thrown out of Israel, Palestinian people, and they cannot return. Let me actually let's Google. Have there been Palestinians thrown out of current day Israel with no right to return? Burp. Yes, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were expelled or fled from their homes in what is now Israel during the 1948 war, known as the Nakba, and in the 1967 war with Israel, subsequently denying them the right to return. That is discriminatory, no matter how you slice it. Thank you.
Israel without speaking a word
no,
of
sure. I'm not saying
Hebrew.
like in comparison, but I'm saying like
Mhm.
there isn't like some cultural tie, there isn't some like nationalistic tie. It's just
that's all right.
you
And
have
it's frustrating that Soypil cannot, for some bizarre reasons, argue that. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
this ethnicity. And so in Israel, it's like, okay, it's not just like, like the Jewish ethnicity is sort of tied to this like project of maintaining this Jewish hegemony that like is explicit in the project of what Israel is. In Germany, there's not this like, I mean, there's obviously like, the extent of like German supremacy, which is funny talking about that in comparison to
Okay,
Jews right now.
yeah.
But like, it's not like
Yes,
we need
okay.
to maintain, I don't know, Oktoberfest. We need to maintain like the German cultural practices because these things aren't like, first of all, that's not even like a countrywide thing. It's literally like based in the South. So it was a bad example. But like, it's not the mission of the country to like make sure that there is
Yeah,
a German
okay, listen,
state.
I
And if
understand
Germany
your
was
point.
to change and be malleable, like we see all these Turkish immigrants coming in, and like there's more Turkish Germans, and like Döner is now
Yeah,
considered
you
German.
can become a citizen if you spend enough time and meet some criteria.
As like the same way burritos
Yeah,
are
no, yeah.
American. Like this is like the shift of countries that happen over decades that I'm okay with. I think this is fine and good, and I think preventing this is discriminatory and bad. And Israel seems to take this to an extent, or any ethnostate that I would oppose is taking it to an extent where it's like we need to specifically preserve something by making discriminatory laws, because if we don't, then we'll lose this thing that I understand why you value, but I don't think is morally justified to say, and that's why we're allowed to say, no, you
So
can't come here, or you have
I
to
see-
leave. That
I
sort of thing.
understand your point. I just don't think any of that is relevant in the comparison, because the goal, right, of Germany, United States, when they allow people to migrate or to get citizenship or otherwise, is not to preserve the culture and the ethnicity as a hegemonic majority. So we are returning. Israel's is. So
Okay.
we are now returning to this sort of like actually important difference. But I
Yeah.
thought at the beginning that we agreed that there's nothing particularly heinous or like super duper unique to wanting to preserve the hegemony. Because if you ask,
Yes, there is actually. There is something pretty heinous and bad about it actually.
any Polish person, any Ukrainian person right now, obviously, any Italian, whatever the fuck person, they will all say, Korean, Japanese, whatever, they will all say unanimously that that's something they care about.
No, I don't care about that at all. I don't. I'm sorry. I just don't. Maybe I'm just an American at heart, but I just don't. I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't care about the ethnic makeup of Poland. My mom doesn't care about it either. I don't care. I don't care about preserving some majority quota of ethnic makeup.
Preserving the
I don't know.
hegemony.
Maybe I said something that alluded to this, but in my opinion, like I don't agree
No.
with this. Like, don't get me wrong. I understand prioritizing and liking the concept of like, hey, we all speak this language and share this culture. What's I mean, like, there's always
That's
going to be
America brain,
distinctions.
though.
Right, sure, but like, I don't think it's makes sense for me to say, like, immigration restriction. I'm not like an open borders policy.
I guess I have America brain. I literally, I guess I have America brain. Just here to watch a thrash fire has. Yep, I don't care about the thing majority in Australia or the Philippines. Yeah, exactly. It's just, I guess I have an American brain.
Person. Like, I understand, like, you need not because of like an ethnic reason, but it's just like if there was this free flowing immigration, completely unrestricted on any aspect, this is going to cause huge economic shocks. There might be like disasters and like the welfare state or whatever like can't compensate, like the hospitals can't compensate, like you need something to control and understand like the economics and the inflow and outflow. But if someone wants to come here, whether they're let's not use America, let's say Germany, right? Because this is good, this is more more of a German centric thing.
Why
It's
not use Poland? Poland is the best example.
like this white or America, anyone could be American. Let's like, can anyone be
America
German?
Doesn't work with this comparison. Let's go with Germany.
So in Germany, where I lived for a few years, like I'm okay with the concept of anyone can be German, even if they are Turkish or
Also,
they're
anybody can be Polish.
Syrian or Muslim.
Yeah, me
The
too.
concept
I'm
of someone
also okay with
coming
that,
in here and like having some ideology that's completely antithetical to the hegemonic, everyone's cold and they're very efficient and punctual, but like I don't think that's the requirement or should be a requirement, right? And I don't like the idea of restricting people from being able to have that freedom of movement just because they're not the right thing. Does that make sense?
You know that
Yep.
the current Germany is like absolutely ass-pained about how many immigrants there are now. You know that,
Yeah,
right?
I'm aware. I lived there like very recently.
Yeah, I know that right-wing populists hate immigration, but that's not an argument.
Yeah, and that's
I know that there's a lot of fear-mongering about immigration, but that's not an argument.
I don't like
why.
that.
I am super cool with the idea of people coming in, with other countries, from other cultures, other religions and shit like that. Only if they sort of assimilate,
No.
Only if they.
I hate the idea of assimilation. Assimilation is a horrible concept, and I hate it. I can get behind integration. I definitely can get behind that, but the idea of assimilation revolts me.
become part of this country. But
Why?
if someone said like because I want to preserve this culture, I don't want to become fucking Polish.
Also, there's no such thing as preserving a culture. There's no such thing as preserving a culture. Culture shifts, changes, and mixes all the time. Cultures are living things. There's no such thing as preserving a culture.
I don't want to. I like to be Ukrainian, right?
So like
So yeah,
One Nation Party is bringing MAGA politics to Australia, and they always bring up cultural assimilation.
this is like getting into the
I hate it when Aussies tell me I've assimilated to Australian culture, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
the distinction here where it's like I don't have an issue with 10 million people from a completely different culture
yeah.
changing
make
the
an
way the
example
makeup
with
of this
America.
country, right?
Let's make America. Okay, so let's say how many millions of people you have.
Let's make America great again. I hate it when Aussies tell me I've assimilated to Australian culture, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? True. I'm gonna be honest, assimilation is a nonsensical concept to me.
I'm not sure exactly, but I think quite a bit. Yeah, a lot of people in the United States. They know the exact how many millions are there.
Like 340 or 50.
Forget. My God, that's a lot. Forget millions. Okay, let's say 60% of people come around now, and they are not, and they are, let's say, they are, I don't know, Sharia law Muslims.
Sure. Yeah, this is like the main argument, by the way, like for people in Germany or
Yeah.
the UK, where it's like,
Sharia law Muslims. Apparently, there's a lot of misconception and complete bullshittery around what Sharia even means. Apparently, to a lot of people, it just means I respect my mom or something like that. Some religious guidance kind of stuff.
Oh,
we
that's-
have to restrict these people because they're going to make our country into what we don't want it to be, right?
Yes, yeah, and it doesn't even have to be fucking like Sharia Muslims, for example. Polish people, I quite like them. I've been in Poland. We are allies in many things, right? But they are extremely conservative compared to us. They are super religious, super duper compared to us, So Catholics, but it doesn't have to be like, I don't really care, like Arab, whatever the fuck, super religious Christian. For me, it doesn't really make that difference. So do I want them here to vote for people who would be making those values prominent in my country? I don't. So yeah, so that's like, is that racist? I guess
Okay, now we're getting into some really wacky stuff. Like Polish people have this inherent conservatism to them. So they were in Ukraine, they would vote for it. That's not how that works. That's not how that works.
the Poles?
Yeah.
No,
Why
it's not. Because it's about their ideology, about their political beliefs. I don't care. They're ethnically Polish, but I don't care. That doesn't matter to me. Who cares? But I care that they will completely change the culture and the nature of this country. They will make it Polish. If I wanted to live in Poland, I would live in Poland.
Do you
If I
think
wanted to
this-
live in
this is an
Germany,
interesting
I would live in
question.
Germany.
No, that's stupid.
You know?
I don't, this is a hypothetical. I don't know if we can, like, it's unfalsifiable. Let's say if Israel realized there was a huge contingent of anti-Israel nationalism American Jews that formed a movement to do birthright at the same time.
Like, I'm sorry, there are 10% of the Polish population is now, they're, like, I'm pretty sure that the amount of Ukrainian people that are in Poland has reached 10%. And Poland is still Poland. Like, I hate this argumentation because it just hinges on Brown's stop Ukrainization of Poland. It's not happening. That's not how that works. None of it is how that works. And also, Polish and Ukrainian people are not that different. I hate to break it to anybody, but Polish people are not inherently all that more conservative than Ukrainian people.
Take advantage of this system and then change the policies of Israel to accept more, Arabs in, or to like get rid of the ethnic policies. Do you think they'd stop birthright?
I mean, I'm not Israeli, so I don't know, but I would imagine. Like, for example, I wouldn't, for example, would I, for example, prefer, let's say this, like hypothetical, or like this close to reality, right? One of my close friends is, who is a volunteer as well as me, is Faik. He's Azerbaijani. He was born like me in,
it's
in
just
Kharkiv,
silly.
but he is Muslim and he's Azerbaijani and quite different.
Literally, there are many, many Ukrainian people in Poland, and Poland did not become Ukraine somehow.
like in terms of appearance and in terms of like culture, in terms of traditions, his views, religious, all of that. He's not some like super duper crazy like Islamic fundamentalist guy, but you know he's quite in there, like Allah, go Allah, right? So do I have more problem with him? Or will I have a problem? No, I have zero problem with him, by the way. Or will I have a problem with a Ukrainian, let's say, ethnically, right? Who like speaks Ukrainian, it looks Ukrainian, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But they are extremely pro-Russian, fucking Putinoid. Do I want Fike or that guy? Obviously Fike, right? So that's not really a question of ethnicity in that sense.
Yeah,
so
it's
I would
ideology. Because
imagine...
to be clear, I don't think
Yeah.
you're like some hyper racist. Like
Value.
clearly, you're like, I
Yeah.
don't care if they're ethnically Polish. If they want to immigrate and do
No,
what
not
my
at all. I don't
country
care about ethnicity much.
country's
Yeah.
culture is, I would like that. So they could be Arab, they could be Polish, and I appreciate that. I understand. It's like
Yeah.
you value, like when I'm in Germany and it's like, okay, hey, we have this cultural mindset.
By the way, just before you say anything, I am quite soy.
You're
By
quite soy?
Western,
Oh.
I'm
Like you're not nearly so like hardline
Yeah.
on this. Yeah, no, don't worry. I've met a lot of right wingers in these places.
Just the hair should like kind of like may explain it. Like I'm not exactly like just for everyone there. Like there's a lot of people in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, in like all sorts of countries that do care more about ethnicity for
Yeah.
sure, like than me. So I'm not speaking for
I don't care about ethnicity
you know,
at all.
everyone here. I'm just saying that I'm not particularly interested in ethnicity, but I can understand the argument there, and you know that's why I'm basically arguing, quote
Sure.
unquote. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is like, I am very sympathetic to this argument. So if I'm in Germany, they don't have turnstiles on the subways because there isn't this cultural need to prevent people from getting to the subway without paying. There is a idea, this social
Yeah.
cohesion that we need to pay for the subway. Now, don't be wrong. People still,
So again, right now, apparently in 2026, Ukrainian in 2023 it was 8%. It fell to 2 to 3%. But 8% was a lot, okay? And it's just hold on. And Poland never changed into something else, right? In Poland. Ridiculous.
there's literally signs everywhere that you have to check these people. People still, Germans,
Yeah, I know, I've been in
immigrants,
Germany
they will
for
steal.
some time,
But
yeah.
for the most part, they understand, hey, wait a minute. We should pay for the subway because not only is it the right thing to do, but that's how the subway's funded. We should all do
Yeah.
this. And the idea of like, what if we made half the country not believe that is very annoying. I want people who come into Germany to have that mindset, to assimilate into that mindset of like, we're all in this together. We all need to contribute to the same project. So I support
following the rules,
assimilation.
all of that, yeah.
Like there's all these great policies of like, hey, here's free language courses for immigrants. Here are like cultural courses for immigrants. Here's how we promote German culture. I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with is taking a look at who the people coming into the country are and saying, well, you're ethnically German by some standard and you're not, and so maybe making some sort of like discriminatory policy. I know we already agreed, like, yeah, obviously, like it makes more sense to have the ethnic Germans come to Germany if they have some history, but because you can't measure the ideology of what an ethnic German or an ethnic Jew or an ethnic Ukrainian, really this as a
No, you
litmus.
can. Culture, ideology, values. You can measure those.
No, you cannot.
Right.
No, you cannot. You absolutely cannot. You cannot. It's impossible. It's actually impossible because one culture has so many elements, then you could easily make, oh, you know this, but you don't know that. Well, then I guess you don't take all. No, you cannot measure that, actually.
Yeah.
But
That kinda
ultimately,
matter.
like, there's
I'm
so
sorry, but you can even make an argument that culturally there's a difference between Western Ukrainians and Eastern Ukrainians because of historical reasons. It's not just one blob. And people are different within a single country in many aspects. So no, you actually cannot just measure that. People are not as culturally homogeneous even within a single country as one might think.
Not to
variance
Americans.
in that I
They
would
do matter. Not to Americans apparently, but they do matter. You know.
They do.
Yeah, I don't.
And there's obviously
it's
it's
just-
more likely that someone with the ethnic background or parents from that country are gonna have something to do with that. But in my eyes, there's
Hold on. I have to do something real quick. Here you go. Oh no.
So much variation here that the idea of like restricting certain peoples on ethnicities for immigration
It's silly.
is getting to it like an uncomfortable concept of why don't we just let anyone who wants to make a life here make a life here, to the extent
That's
to which
America.
our system can handle it.
That's also Poland. You can go into the country. If you spend enough years in Poland, you can get a citizenship. So that's not just America.
And promote them
Oh my
in as many ways as we can to assimilate into our culture, but not discriminate against people who are not, ethnically
It's
tied or have
America,
some
you have
weird
it.
right of
You already
return.
have a
Like,
country like that. Not everyone needs to be like you. That's
No, it's not just America. No. I'm sorry. In Poland you can hold high office in the land no matter what ethnicity you are. It's silly. Come on. Please.
America. You know? We don't have that. So
Sure.
that's fine.
Doesn't Ukraine? Wait, hold on. Okay, let's put that to the test. Okay, criteria to get citizenship in Ukraine. As of 2026, obtaining Ukrainian citizenship involves naturalization, 5 years legal residency, territorial origin, descent, or marriage. Core requirements: legal residency. Oh, hold on. Do you need to pass a language exam in Poland to get citizenship? Yes, for most Polish speaking Polish language exam, B level or higher. B level is fine. So you just have to be able to function in Poland in everyday life to get a citizenship.
I don't think that every single
And it seems it's the same in Ukraine.
country who doesn't have this mindset is evil, okay? That's my whole point. Like, you can't.
I didn't say they're evil, to be
say-
clear. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't like
but-
that.
I mean, you do. I mean, I understand. I don't like many things about Americans. Like, I think your free speech shit is stupid as fuck.
Okay.
No, I think it's evil. Okay, I think ethno-statism is evil. There you go. And I do also think that the free speech thing in America is stupid. Yes.
No, but what can I do? You know, it's not my right to like dictate how it should be. Because like, if your only statement is I don't like it, we don't have any problem with each other then. You know, I don't like many things. Like, that's fine. You know, right? You don't have to like fuck all really if you
So
don't.
again, conversation's over then.
But it's just that I imagine when you make a statement like that, when you criticize, right, Israel about that whole thing, you're making
Yeah,
it
I do, and I will continue to.
as something like it should change, and like I don't think that's good morally, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not just I don't.
I mean, technically speaking, Soipil has the right to say that, because Soipil is Jewish, and according to Israel, Soipil is Israeli, basically, and me, for that matter. So, actually, we do have that right to say that it should change, because citizens of their own country have the right to criticize how it functions. Checkmate, loophole. Oh, snap.
So like
Agree
it's
with it, right?
prescription. It's like I don't
Yeah,
think this is morally right to do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, and he has the right to do it because of the reasons that I've laid down.
because you are prescribing the judgment like that, that's where it comes like my problem. Because
Why? Why would it be a problem? Technically speaking, Soipil is Israeli, so he should be able to. Absolutely, he should be able to criticize Incub. You should vote at the next Israeli election then. No.
like if you just simply say I think our system is better and I appreciate it more and I like it and I don't like that shit and I don't want it, that's fine. But also like consider this, it's like a non-American perspective for you, I guess, just something to think about,
What about my un-American perspective?
is that you are, I don't want to be extremely soy, okay, it's gonna sound very soy, but I'm on the soy pill channel, so who cares at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It will be very soy, but like it stinks of privilege to me.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It does not stink of privilege. I'm sorry, it is. Americans often actually do, Westerners a lot of the time do say a lot of privileged crap, but that ain't it, sister. No, that's not that time. Glitchmaster said, wow, Lucy, against my God-given right to scream the N-word. Free speech.
So it stinks of someone who speaks of the country that never had their identity being infringed upon.
I come from a country that has had its identity infringed upon. And I'm sorry, identity and ethnicity are two completely separate things. Identity and ethnicity are two completely separate questions. I'm sorry to say. Okay? You don't have Polish ethnicity and Ukrainian ethnicity. You have Slavic ethnicity, actually. So, actually, let me see. There you go. A major ethno group. So there you go.
You speak from a country that never have been genocided, never had been colonized.
I come from a country that has been genocided. I come from a country that has been colonized. What now?
I mean, your country has been colonized by you, by Americans. But you American people, right?
By the British and many other European countries.
Your American national identity was never infringed upon. Nobody tried to make you speak another language forcefully.
Well, I come from a country that happens to have experienced all of these things.
Nobody banned your language. Nobody prohibited your existence. Nobody thrown you into fucking camps and death balled you. Nobody gassed you. You know, all of that. Nobody settled you.
Nobody gassed you is a very original thing. That's nobody gassed you is not a thing that you should probably say to a Jewish person, by the way. I don't think you want to tell a Jewish person nobody has ever gassed your people. Okay? I think that was a little bit overboard. Okay? I don't think you want to say that. Nobody has ever put you in camps and nobody has ever. You already said that he was Jewish. What do you mean nobody has ever put your people in camps or gassed you? I don't think you want to go there, honestly. Yeah, sorry.
You, the way you settled the continent yourself, obviously. So speaking of that, you have to understand that for you, the idea of preserving your own.
But yeah, I do come from a country that has experienced all those horrible atrocities, so.
Core hegemonist identity is silly for two reasons. Because one, you don't really have a hegemonist identity to begin with.
Sure,
you know?
but we
So,
also have never had it be a threat to the same extent other countries have. Is what you're saying.
But you also
Yeah, but ethnicity and identity are two separate questions again. Silly. Silly. And also identity is an ever-shifting thing. There is no homogeneous identity. It's fiction.
never really experienced what it's like to have it infringed upon. So if I were you, I would also be like, why the fuck do I need to protect this thing? Who attacks it? And
Well,
it's valid.
To be clear,
Nobody attacks it.
I am. I mean,
No,
you know,
come on. No. This is silly.
I haven't. I have family that died in the Holocaust. I've you know.
I'm speaking as an
No,
American.
I know,
Jews
but I'm saying like
obviously-
Americans in general, like they don't have this experience. But like I'm not. This concept isn't like it's not like I can't grasp it. I totally understand this, but I think there's a difference between.
There you go. You really should not tell a Jewish person you were never gassed. Because, oh my goodness. Oh boy.
Say Russians trying to come into Ukraine, change the ethnic makeup, and eliminate the culture. Literally do a genocide type like ethnic cleanse and cultural.
Yeah, but that was happened to the
wipe.
Jews.
Or doing this to Jews, right? Yeah, like which is happening.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, but that was happened to the
Wipe.
Jews.
Or doing this to Jews, right? Yeah, like which has happened to them all over for hundreds, thousands of years.
That's why
Hundreds
they
and
care
thousands of
about the preservation of that hegemonist identity, because we know, all of us, I'm not like saying I'm a Jew by any means.
No. That's, oh God. Israel is horrible at protecting Jewish people, by the way. So that's not even a valid argument.
Like I relate to that. That's why I'm speaking that way. Okay, it's
Right,
not
right.
that I'm
Also, there's no homogeneous Jewish identity.
saying Jews
but
had
the
the
diff-
exact same. Yeah,
difference
I
here
want to
is-
preserve Ukrainian identity, because each time we are governed by people, and we are that or aren't us.
Also, I don't have anything against preserving people's identity. I just don't care about an ethnic makeup of a people. Those are two very different questions. Those are two very different concepts.
We're getting fucked. So of course, historically, it has been the case, right? So I don't want Poles to govern. I don't want Russians to govern in Ukraine. I don't want them to be the majority, because when that's the case, we're fucked.
Wait, yeah. This is what I wanted to get at. So I think there's a big difference between like the most extreme example, which is a country using hard power like Russia is to come in, fuck with the culture, eliminate this country culturally, not maybe, like nuke it off the map, but like be like, no, like we're replacing your schools with Russian language schools, and we're replacing your kids with
I mean, that's great, but you have politicians of Ukrainian origin that hold high offices. Our Minister of Justice is of Ukrainian origin, and there's no problem. Yeah,
this sort of shit. There's a big difference between that and
you're right, Glitchmaster.
people immigrating to the country that might not be part of that cultural makeup, that might not 100% buy into what most people would consider German, Polish, this sort of thing. And so it seems to me, and like maybe there's more merit to this argument in Israel. I don't know if I buy into this, but that people are afraid that if you have too many of these people, eventually there's this weird kind of like same goal as the hard power invasion thing, but then once they're kind of slipped into the government, then they're going to vote and change it themselves as this sort of like malicious thing. And to me, I don't see it that way. I don't see like, oh, these people are going to invade, subvert us, get into government, and then change our country. I see it as people with different opinions and cultures can come in, and that can mix, and they can vote differently, and that's fine. And I don't think that because they're going to vote in a way or change the way that I like the country the best, that this gives me the right to say you can't be here. Does that make sense?
I mean, yes, that makes perfect sense, American sense. Like
No, it just makes sense. I'm sorry, it just makes sense. Like my friends are Polish, even though they're also Vietnamese. I don't care about their tone of their skin, their ethnicity. If they're here, they're Polish.
It's very
Their mom does not speak Polish in the slightest. Okay, not in the slightest. She speaks a bit of Polish, but she's still welcome here, right?
cute. But I am so envious, dude.
Or there, because I'm in Ukraine now.
I want to be you. I want to be you so bad. I want to live in a country when I'm not threatened, and I don't have to assess fucking threats every 5 seconds to the very existence of our nation. That's very cool. I want that.
This is the bombed versus the unbombed, right? I'm an unbombed.
Yes. I mean, I understand 100%. By the way, despite memeing, where that comes from.
Okay, that has nothing to do with ethnicity.
Like I am not like saying that your logic is like some sort of that is stupid, or it's not. It applies to your country. So that's why when I hear like white nationalists, quote unquote, whatever the fuck they are in the Americas, or when they speak about like let's return to the country as it was, and I'm like, what? Like English, German, Irish, French, Italian?
Yeah. That, like mixing all these white things together. Yeah. And
to me that's funny, obviously, and to most Europeans.
But it's the same logic, right?
Yeah, I mean, not really. Like, it just doesn't apply to the United States. That's why.
Except the United States started out by privileging Anglo-Saxons in particular, right? That's why Polish people were not considered white, for example, in America.
You're not.
It doesn't, because white as a concept is a silly kind of thing that we made up to conflate all these things and use it to make out groups of like, you're black, you're Mexican, you're not white, even though if you try
white was Anglo-Saxon the beginning of the United States, so that's not even true.
Do this in Europe, like they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like Germans are obviously better than French, and those stinky French people.
Yeah,
like it's silly, but the logic is the same, right? These people are saying this is what I consider the American majority hegemony, and no matter how silly that definition is, they're going to use the same logic to say this is going to change. Like white culture, white hegemony, white cohesion is threatened when you have Mexicans coming in and like Indians coming in, right?
How many? If the country is like majority, what Jews are trying to prevent in Israel, right, is to have a majority Arab country. So if your country was
the loner box argument,
a majority Arab, hardcore Sharia law, fundamental Islamist, it would change the United States. It's just not happening, I don't see it happening anytime soon, to be for real. Like, that you have 60% Mexicans in your country, it's just, but the right of return, for example, what many Palestinians demand, will make it majority Arab country. And if you don't even believe that they will be ethnically cleansed, which I personally believe that they will ethnically cleanse the Jews if they are the majority, but even if you...
Why that is such a strange assumption.
don't buy that, we don't have to talk about that at all.
Sure.
Then they will not be the majority in their own country anymore. And what kind of safety net they can possibly have then?
It doesn't. Israel already is very bad at protecting Jewish people, as is. Like, there's so many groups of Jewish people that are discriminated against. Again, Ethiopian Jewish people are extremely discriminated in Israel.
And that's a
Right,
valid
and
concern.
this is what I'm getting at, where it's like
No, it's not a valid concern.
there could be the case where
It's
it's like,
like it's Israel version of white replacement.
like if these people had ultimate power through voting and democracy, this would lead to some sort of genocide or something like that, and that could be a very valid
Yeah.
risk, and you'd have to assess like how do we deal with that. But like again, this is the same logic
Yeah, it's
In
just white replacement logic. I'm sorry.
America with baseless, faulty, ethnic
Baseless and faulty,
origins.
though.
But that doesn't
That's the
matter
problem.
because ultimately it's true that the thing they want to preserve, let's say whiteness as in a white majority, would be threatened by different ethnicities coming in and saying, actually, I don't think we need a white majority. Right? So no matter how much I think their stupid like thing they want to preserve is just like this baseless, oh, what is even white? They are correct to say inviting people who aren't that, who will change the makeup and say, yeah, we don't want restrictive immigration laws, and we will elect a black or a Mexican or whatever president that's not this German,
Hello.
Irish, Italian thing.
Hello, two-bit dork. I saw the end of this talk live. It's pretty weird. I just don't agree with Anastasia on this. I'm sorry. I just don't agree with. I think ethnostates suck. And I do come from a country that has been genocided, subjugated, colonized, and whatnot. And I still think that ethnostates suck. I don't care about the ethnic makeup of a country. I don't mind people cherishing elements of culture because there's no such as a monolithic culture. That doesn't exist. Cultures are living things. Culture always intertwine, change. That's unavoidable. You can cope about it, but that's the reality of life. Cultures are not static things that you can preserve, and I just don't care about the ethnic makeup of a country. I don't care if Poland would become 99% black. I wouldn't care in the slightest. Not in the slightest. You sure they don't allow brown Jewish people into bomb shelters? That's pretty messed up. Like I just don't care about ethnicity. That's not a thing that is on my mind.
That is going to get rid of the thing they want to preserve. So I don't think that's justification, whether or not the original thing is worth preserving, to restrict other people's movement and say you can't have a voice in this country because there's so many ways I can look at all of these people
Yep.
coming in. Or in Germany.
That's why in Poland you can hold office no matter what your ethnicity or anything else is. You just can. Pretty sure we have some Vietnamese people in the Polish government.
These Turkish people coming in and assimilating and changing things just for the positive, not in a way to threaten, not in a way to like destroy what it means to be German, but as the natural consequence.
There's no static thing of what it means to be German. What it means to be German changes all the time. What it means to be Polish changes all the time. What it means to be Ukrainian changes all the time. Trying to preserve some static idea of what it means to be X is a futile effort. You're just setting up yourself for failure. That's not a thing. That is not a thing. Even within a single country, what it means to be Ukrainian, what it means to be Polish, what it means to be German means something completely different to different people living in the same country. There's no unified, across the board, same idea of what it means to be of a country. That just doesn't exist. There's no such thing.
Of how cultures shift and how countries develop and become.
It's a completely different thing, dude. It's like it's two completely different things. You're not fucking threatened. There's no valid. You can't compare two things that are similar in principle, where one argumentation is valid and the other isn't.
Okay, well here let's pick Germany
the
then.
same.
Let's use Germany as an example, right? What do you think because this is real? This is a real sentiment. What are they trying to preserve when they say like we have too many people who are Turkish coming in, for example.
If you have like, for example, Turks, it's like a little bit cringe as well because
Oh
Turks
my
have
God.
assimilated pretty well, as far as like I know. I've been in Germany for a couple of months, and most of them aren't really,
Also, it doesn't matter. Assimilation doesn't matter because ethnostates don't care about assimilation. That is a thing that I should point out. Assimilation is antithetical to ethnostates because ethnostates don't care about the preservation of culture. They care about the preservation of ethnicity. It's in the name, ethnostate. You have to be of a certain ethnicity to be part of the nation, to be considered part of the core group, the nation, right? That's the idea behind an ethnostate, which means that no matter how you assimilate, no matter how you try, no matter how you learn the language, no matter how you respect the culture, as long as you're not of the ethnicity, you're not part of the ethnostate and you'll be cast out. So it doesn't matter. Once you introduce an idea of assimilation that anybody can come to a country and become part of that country and get a citizenship and be the German just like other Germans, you no longer have an ethnostate, definitionally. That's no longer an ethnostate. Even if the country wants to preserve German culture, demand that people assimilate if they want to be in it. They want all the Turkish people to assimilate, and they demand that that's still no longer an ethnostate because it's not a ethnically homogeneous country at that point. So that's just
committing like unhinged amount of crimes. They're not like doing anything to, they're not getting elected in the fucking German, Reichstag or anything like that. So it's not really. It's a little silly. I have always thought so because like I've been in Germany for many months and I never saw like any like even confrontations between really the Turks and the Germans or like being like Turks mostly work in like fucking, as you know, like fucking food industries and all sorts of things. And it's like if anything, it only added to the country. So with that, I'm like in agreement with you, and I do think that aggressive sentiment against migrants that isn't it's not always valid, of course, because like you ask them what do they do that is wrong.
okay.
Or like
When is it valid? When is a broad aggressive sentiment against immigration valid?
that is harming the country, and they're like, "Bleh, who knows, they're just Turks,"
Right.
It
But
comes
this
down to
is like
that.
we can look
Yeah,
at this with
and
the
that's
benefit of
cringe.
hindsight and say, look, they've assimilated so well. Really, we should never have had like any sort of policy restricting this or discriminating. But if you were to look at like when this started, like I want to say like pre 2010s, you would be like, well, hold on, like these people are not going to be German, and they're going to change us to like a more Turkish culture, and we need to restrict them, and we don't want them to come in here and change what it means to be German. And now being Turkish American is
Yeah, but what it means to be German is just, again, Stoipel as well as Anastasia conflate ethnicity with nationality, and those are two separate things. Okay, what it means to be German does not inform us about an ethnicity.
such an integral part of German culture that I'm like, this wasn't a threat insofar as it was going to destroy Germany, but it was a threat insofar as what it meant to be German didn't include being Turkish American. It didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm.
They're
Huh?
not just allowed in with no stops. They aren't majority. Like if they were majority, it would be fucking Turkey. So,
So
like
I guess
it's
yes,
just,
like
it's just
if we take it to the extremes of like, if we could show over the next 15 years that like Germany would go from 80 million Germans to 80 million Germans and 120 million Turks or something like this, right? It's like, oh, maybe we ought to consider what this will make the country look like, and like I don't
should.
ethnic. No,
everyone
well,
should consider it.
sure,
You
sure,
have
No, that's stupid fear mongering. No. Oh God.
I
allow
understand this,
migration,
but
limit it.
well, yeah, but limit it based on what? The fact that they're Turkish, or the fact that like you think that
In
Turkish people.
general. You can't just fucking have like, hey, come on in. It's not you
I'm
yourself.
sorry, that has been the thing for hundreds of years, and it has never led to the catastrophic things that Anastasia is talking about here. That has been the reality of people in up until World War One, even. because you still had many peoples living in Europe prior to the existence of nation states. Like people, Europe was not homogeneous. You had many different people living in many different places in Europe. And during World War One, you had this massive ethnic cleansing, which homogenized things a bit, but it's just nonsense.
that you have to have reasonable borders. You're not an open borders guy, so
Yeah.
you can't have a country if you don't have a fucking border. So
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm sorry, but border control, as we understand it now, is an invention of the nation state, and countries existed as countries before the nation state. So that's silly. That is a silly thing to say that you cannot have a country without border patrol. Did countries not exist before nation states? The answer is yes, they existed. Countries existed before nation states. So that's just a silly thing to say. Without border patrol, you cannot have a country. Yes, we can. You absolutely can.
yeah, it's just it defines the country, the border, right, in some sense. And it's just
Yes, the borders do define a country, but that does not follow that you have the border patrol in the same sense that you have today. Again, border control is not something that existed throughout time.
we are now talking about immigration, which I don't think we should be even like talking about. We're talking more about like I think you're kind of like conflating the idea of preserving the ethnic hegemony with the idea of not allowing migrants. So I'm not against not allowing migrants, but I'm certainly against allowing like millions bajillions of them, you know.
Well,
And I
yeah,
don't
and
think
me
that's
too,
wrong.
but not really
Yeah.
on the basis of
There you
ethnicity
go.
or like lack of German ethnicity.
There you go. God damn it. Yes, people should learn about these things. Yes, the current style of border patrol is a direct product of modern nation state, evolving from its 19th, 20th century origin into a formalized mechanism for enforcing territorial sovereignty, national identity, and security. The US Border Patrol, specifically established in 1924, reflects this by transitioning from a simple territory marking to a specialized militarized force designed to control the movement of people and goods. Okay, I'm sorry. It's just God. I'm getting frustrated.
Right? It would be because like, hey, this is going to cause economic and like structural shocks,
Yeah,
infrastructure
but
shocks
like,
that we
why
couldn't deal
not?
with,
Like,
right?
if you have like some magical Germans living somewhere, it's not really the case. But if you have like I don't know, million Germans that escaped Germany, so something like if that was the
Yeah,
case, right?
in
Not
Argentina or something.
Argentina.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like not the Nazi shit, but like even that, for example, like for example, you had like it's just Germany is also mostly the aggressor. That's the problem.
Yeah, in that
That's why
case.
we are so. It's also mostly imperialist country. So, for example, let's say like you have a I don't know like American. If you didn't nuke all the fucking most of the Native American people, for example, if they didn't die out of the disease and like all sorts of shit that happened, right? If for example they ended up escaping, like let's say Jews did back in the day from the Jewish kingdom, and then you like build your own shit here, you live here like as Americans for generations, and then at one day, native people are like, hey, maybe we should like go back to our ancestral place, right? And they, for example,
Oh,
lived, I
wait,
don't
one
know,
sec. Sorry,
silly
you cut out for me after ancestral. Can you start over? My bad. This is a thing on mine.
ancestral.
And yeah, the ancestral land of the Native Americans. Yeah.
The incestuous land.
Ancestral, similar words now that I think about it. Anyway,
Mm.
point is that they, for example, let's imagine some silly situation that they live in like France, I don't know, Germany, I don't know, Denmark or some shit, and then they all like, hey, you like, let's return, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's just it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, but the problem is that native peoples were not just a single group called the native peoples. They were many different groups. Okay.
Because like they used to be there and you nuked them and now they want to return.
Sure.
So that's a completely different thing. And like for
Yeah,
example,
like the Palestinians that are denied that right of return. Yeah, you're starting to get it. Kind of. Yeah.
that's not the same. That's kind of what happened with the Jews, right? So the locals didn't want them there. Now they were like, "What? Who the fuck are those like European Jewish fucking people that are coming in here? Like it's we live here." But it's not the same thing as it's just random assholes trying to fucking mass migrate to your country, right? Though native people would be native. people you wronged by getting
Random asshole trying to mass migrate. Nobody just tries to mass migrate. Let's also get the context right of the mass migration. Okay, mass migration usually happens when there's a crisis of instability happening at home, and you know what? The West actually creates a lot of that instability and crisis situations which force mass migration. I kind of think that it's worth mentioning when discussing the whole topic of, mass migration and replacement and all that other bullshit fear-mongering. Just saying, a lot of these things when it comes to mass migration is West creates problem, West complains about repercussions. There you go. I've said it. I have said it.
them the fuck out of here, right? And they now want to return, but they're native there, right? They have
Yeah.
the right in a way.
Well,
Because
hold on, I
it's
mean,
not
like,
the same.
I don't even know if I would draw this distinction, but this is kind of like getting to the heart of it, where like, not only would Israel not allow people who are not Jewish or like restrict it to like more Jewish immigration, but even the people that might have some sort of claim over the land, those like Palestinians,
Yeah, they're not being allowed.
also not
Return.
allowed, right? And,
Yeah,
and it's not
I'm
just
just
because they're not
finding that
Jewish, it's
would
because
you
of
would
this
you
like
think
kind of
Americans would just allow all those like French native Americans, English Native Americans, Irish Native Americans, Polish Native Americans just to drop by like by millions?
I
No.
don't know what this would look. Whether or not they allow them is probably not. But I mean, obviously we haven't. But like the way that we kind of
So I guess Anastasia's argument is that Jewish people should not have been allowed to form Israel to begin with, right? Is that the argument?
dealt with Native
I mean,
Americans
it's not real
with these
situation, but it's yeah,
right. But like
they're not.
the way that we dealt with it, with like reservations and like reparations, like I don't know if
So
I'm happy with like the results of how we've like kind of kept this like weird like separate
Whoa.
but equal, or like you can use
I
casinos to
definitely
like
don't
generate
think.
revenue.
Yeah,
Like
I don't think that's a great system you have going on there. Don't get me wrong. I just brought this example up because it like makes more sense in terms of like original people had to leave due to like genocide or like colonization or whatever the fuck, and now they return. It's
right.
still I bet you fucking most Americans will not be like, well, sure, like bring like fucking I don't know 50 million of those guys back. Like no, probably not. Like
No, but would
and
you support then like some sort of filtered system where like
No.
it's limited? Let's say this, like Germany is like, look, we realize we fucked over. Maybe this was the Dutch, but let's just say some country in Africa, whichever one they fucked up, and it's like, look, we want to say that you want to make a better life for yourself. Maybe you want to take advantage of the first world privileges that Germany has, some of which that were acquired through us fucking over your country. So we're gonna have a funnel that's restrictive insofar as like, yeah, we're not going to like maximize this, but we're going to give you like paths to like come here. And it doesn't matter if you're ethnically German, it doesn't matter like what your ideology is, like you get this opportunity to make a better life for yourself here, and we're going to not make it so like the entirety of this country comes in, but here you go, here's a pipeline. Like I would support that. And I think that doing the opposite of that, which is to say, I don't care what happened to you, you are not allowed to come here unless there's like some specific ethnic thing that you have attached to your history, or if like I can 100% be certain that you're going to assimilate. I don't think that's a fair thing to do. I'm morally opposed to the idea of like ideologically restricting this. I understand like in the extremes of tens of hundreds of millions, like yes, okay, maybe this would be some crazy and like invasion type thing, but for the most part, this is not how like immigration works, and restricting it on that basis to me is just doesn't. It's not.
I mean, you can
justified.
get citizenship in most countries, right?
Yeah.
By following the fucking rules and shit like that, making it easier for something of that shares your ethnic
I'll be right back.
background
I
is
have to
not
go
the
to the
same as
toilet.
not allowing anyone else.
Consider donating and subscribing, and joining my page lucyhaza.org/live. Also, I've been working on the history mini essay, so I'll be releasing that on Patreon this weekend. I have made a little announcement about it. It's all cool. It's all good. I think you'll be impressed. I think you'll like it. So consider doing all these nice things. Okay? Be right back. I'm back.
So the restrictions could be more tense, right? Can be very, very, very difficult to
To
get a
me,
citizenship in the
that's all
country. Or it can be
bullshit.
like relatively easy. As far as I know, getting an American one is not easy unless you're like an exceptional fucking person or whatever the fuck, right? And it's just yeah. So it's not like like I said, we just moved so far away from like the whole ethno-state thing now. I feel like we're mostly
Okay, yeah.
talking
If you want
about
to
like
recenter it, like
yeah,
Yeah.
immigration and shit like that. But yeah, my main thing is like sometimes it's like you have to look at it from the validity perspective. Like
There is no validity to ethnostates. I'm sorry, you would no. There's no validity to
how
ethnostates.
valid is the idea, right? And is it immoral to want to preserve your ethnic hegemony? And
Yes, yes, yes,
I think just by itself, it's not.
yes, it is. Because it means that people that have lived in a certain place, even if they have history of living there for hundreds of years, are still lesser than because they're not considered part of the hegemonic ethnicity. No, that idea is bullshit.
So we can make
it's not
examples. For
immoral
example,
inherently.
Yes, it is. I'll go there. Yes, it is inherently immoral.
yeah. For example, you can make example.
Yes, it is. If you have Germans living in Central Europe for hundreds upon hundreds of years, but suddenly they become excluded from a country or a nation because they're not the right ethnicity, the majority ethnicity, then that's just bullshit. So thank you very much, Glitchmaster, for the $50. Hope this helps. Thank you so much. Just here to watch a trash farces. The ethnocentrism is off the charts this era. Yeah. Like I don't yeah, it's inherently immoral, I'm gonna say it. Ethnostates are in fact inherently actually I'm pretty sure ethnostates are also a direct product of nation states. Are ethnostates a product of nation? Yes, ethnostates can be considered a specialized extreme product of subset of the broader nation state. There you go. All that's bad in the world is a product of the nation state, unfortunately.
That was done objectively quite immorally. It would be like, for example, Ottoman Empire at the end of it, right? It was clear that the empire was like sort of collapsing. Everyone was pretty fucking distraught about that. Then you lose World War One, and it's a shit show. And they decide the nationalist movement then came to power in Turkey called Young Turks. Hilariously enough, I don't know why the fuck they named themselves that. Hassan's uncle organization, but whatever the fuck. So the Young Turks basically did make that claim of a very, very, very restrictive ethno-state because they said that the Armenians and the Greeks are by default traitors.
There were more people. There were more than just the Greeks and the Armenians in the Ottoman Empire.
And they cannot be trusted because they are non-Turks and non-Muslim.
Right. And double checking, this is an example of this was done in a bad way.
Yes.
Okay.
It's always done in a bad way. I can find no examples of ethnostates done being in a good way. I would sincerely like to be given an example of an ethnostate that is done in a good way. You'll not no. I'm sorry, no.
Yes. So they decided that
No,
fuck
no,
those
no,
people. They cannot be trusted. They based it sort of like of a semi-real thing, like with the bankers and Jewish thing. People base it like of reality a little bit, but they twist it because, for example, there were a lot of Armenians who wanted to assist Russia. Wanted to collaborate with like Russian Empire during the war between.
No, fuck me. That's not what happened. It's just that Russia had Armenian citizens within its borders, and the Ottoman Empire also had Armenian citizens within its borders. So they both fought on the side of the respective countries in the military.
Turkish Empire and Russian Empire, right? So it's not like out of nowhere, but the Young Turks
Yes, it is. In the sense that it's just yes, it is.
pointed, look, those people, all of them, right? All of the Armenians here, all of the Greek people here, they are treacherous and they assisted the enemy and they are not to be part of us because we need to preserve ourselves, and to do that we need to be, Turks and Muslims essentially, right?
Right.
So their decision was to.
This is. I think maybe we can get to the heart of this and like back up and like look at a super bird's eye view. do you think it's okay to treat every member of a certain population or an out group, every out group that is not the in group, the same with the same prescriptions, no matter if there are some portion of that out group that does something you don't like? Because that's the
No, it's not okay. No.
thing I'm
No,
principally opposed
generally
to.
no. Yeah, generally no, of course. Yeah, because especially because has been used historically, right, to do that generalization thing and just genocide people. For example, like Stalin declared all Crimean Tatars to be Nazi collaborators. That was not true.
Right.
And in fact, the opposite was true. Most of them were in the Red Army, right? But he used that to declare them
Of course.
basically
Polish people caused the Holodomor, and then 200,000 Polish people in the USSR were killed. Of course, we all know this kind of thing happened, yeah. It is known.
Rada to declare them the treacherous nation, and what's done is that they were completely removed
Sorry,
from
what did you
Crimea.
say?
The treacherous nation. Use that to declare them basically non grata, to declare
no,
them
then.
the treacherous nation, and what's done is that they were completely removed from Crimea
Yeah.
entirely, basically.
And so the way I'm
And,
looking at this is like, okay,
Yeah, that's never a good thing.
you look
but-
at mass,
yeah.
okay, millions of people coming in, and this could potentially cause shocks. This could potentially change the makeup in such significant ways that, like, you know, if this happened in a short period of time, this could be some insane thing happening. Like, I understand that risk and like saying like, how do we make some sort of pipeline for this and compensate for this? But when I look at any country that says you are not this, or you are this specific ethnicity, which is not this ethnicity, and because we have a fear of what if a bunch of these people came, or if even like what the ideology of your specific ethnicity is, you can't do something. That's what I have a problem with. You as an individual
like
can't come here.
with the Turkish example, right? With the Turkish example, why I even brought it up was because that they didn't have the legitimate reason, first of all, and second of all, their answer was to destroy, to basically expel and kill
There is
the
never a
minority.
legitimate reason.
They were already the majority. You see the difference there? They were already the biggest, most powerful group, Turks, in Ottoman Empire, right? There was already majority Muslim, with like Turks and Arabs being two main groups in Ottoman Empire, right? So they expelled and killed millions of people, Greek and Armenians, right, in the process, because they perceived them as a threat, but they were already the minority group. They were already the group that was underprivileged, that was second-class citizens in the Ottoman Empire. It's not the same as if Turks said, I don't want other people here because I want to be majority Turkish country.
I understand like the positive...
I hate the idea of keeping a country a majority country, by the way. It's stupid. It's stupid. Sorry. It's just stupid. Also, majority Turkish, and again, this is conflating nationality and ethnicity to an uncomfortable degree.
Of pushing someone out who's already here is very different from I don't want you to come here. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So preserving your hegemony by let's say inviting people in and giving people of the same ethnicity privileged status and the ability to easily get the citizenship, for example, like my situation with the Greek, thing I brought up, is not, and also like maybe making pretty restrictive the ability of other people to get citizenship in the country, right? Is not the same.
It's not
as
the
like
same, sure.
expel, so that's like those are two things. Like one thing I would be obviously against, anyone with some sort of sense should be, expelled.
Right.
I think the whole giving ethnicity preferential treatment is stupid as well.
You and I both have similar principles, like where we draw the line is different. But again, so
but you still haven't been able to.
There's so much ignorance and complete lack of education on both sides of this argument.
Convince me if you have a legitimate reason to preserve that hegemony. For example, like let's.
What are we talking about when it comes to hegemony? Ethnic hegemony? Ethnic hegemony has nothing to do with culture. There's nothing inherently there's no inherent culture baked into an ethnicity.
On Israel, fuck them, okay? Grain stealing assholes don't care. But yes, abandon them, okay? But just talk, for example, like easily about Ukraine. Like I would actually make a slightly provocative question to you. For example, currently.
Okay, let's go.
Russians are engaged with the settler company, right? So they territories that they occupy, they bring Russian people there. They deport Ukrainians, and also a lot of Ukrainians just simply escape to back to non-occupied Ukraine, right? And they move settlers from Russia there. And then there are and gonna be, and maybe already are, parts of Ukraine that is occupied that has now more Russians there than Ukrainians because they moved Russians there to resettle it. So like places like Melitopol, Mariupol, places like Crimea, whatever the fuck, right? And if we ever were, for example, to take it back, right? Let's say, and we take it back, and let's say I personally believe that most of those Russians will run to Russia. If I'm honest, that's like my hope, kind of, if that ever happens. But like, if let's say not, let's say they remain. And they are the fucking settlers who came there to illegally occupy territory, and they now live there for like, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And now 20 years later, we take back that place, and now we have a bunch of fucking Russians there, ethnic and otherwise citizens of Russia, right? So what do you think would you be against Ukrainians basically doing the fucking ethnic cleansing? Not killing them, obviously. I would not support that, but pushing them the fuck out back to Russia.
So can you explain like the exact
Serious
mechanism? So essentially, you're saying like these are companies or like groups that are hired by
15 years? They've been living there for 15 years. You know what? I would allow people that had to flee to return to their homes, first of all. And if I would be very charitable, I would give some of the Russians a choice. But most of them, I would have no problem pushing them back to Russia, actually. If they were living there for 15 years and they were colonizers, then no, I would have. There you go. There you go. But it has nothing to do with ethnicity. That is a completely different question, unrelated to a place being an ethnostate. Because now we're talking about the erasure of national identity, right? We're talking on national grounds. Because technically speaking, Polish people, Russian people, Ukrainian people are all part of a broader Slavic ethnic makeup. So you cannot even make the argument on the ethnic grounds if you're being very technical about it.
the country to like it's almost like the agenda of a separate country to change the ethnic makeup and make it more Russian. Is this kind of the reason I think this is different, and I wouldn't have a problem with these people being kicked out is
removed.
This isn't individuals with a wide range of opinions. This is state actors.
They are, though. They're just Russian. They're just Russians. They're just regular Russian people. They just come around and they go there because they're stimulated by Russia by, for example, providing them cheap prices for burned down apartments that they sort of rebuilt in Mariupol, right? They will now be easier, cheaper for them to live there. So they can go there. Israel does that, by the way, with the fucking settlers. The territory there would be like cheaper and things like that, right? So they come around, just regular Russian people. They just
but what I mean is like, this is they are being used as pawns as the agenda of a country to ethnically cleanse
We're
you,
going somewhere,
right?
yes.
So
Yes,
if you could show me that the Mexican
But it's more than just that, because again, there are arguments to be made ethnically, but it's not about really ethnic makeup. In this case, it's about national identity and national makeup.
government was like, if we make it easy enough for Mexicans to get into California and eventually they'll infiltrate the ranks, and it doesn't matter that we haven't told them what to do.
The reverse happened right before the US-Mexican war, by the way.
Just by virtue of being Mexican, they're going to have some allegiance to us, and suddenly now we get better tariffs and better, and like eventually we'll be able to make California secede. Like, I'd say, okay, well, hold on. Now we're not discriminating just on their ethnicity.
Yes.
Now we're saying we are opposing a literal invasion from a state acting, agenda, and we have to do something about that. And
but that's not the same as being. That's a completely different question from ethnostates. It's a completely different conversation.
I think that is different.
Yes,
So no.
because then they will be a legitimate threat. I mean, it's kind of silly to imagine Mexico being a legitimate threat too, but you know, the thing is that when it's a legitimate threat, it's a completely different thing, right? So, for example, do I want Russians here? For example, you said like you can't group people, right? All of them, right? But in this case, I can, because those people are a tool that the Russian state is using to assimilate and to settle and to make the Russian be the hegemonous majority on that
That's okay, but that's a completely different question from countries being ethnostates. It's unrelated, I would even dare say.
territories, right?
Yeah,
So,
and this
for
is, correct me if I'm
example-
wrong, like this is like has defined parameters. Like I think like what they're doing is like a war crime, right? It's like we see that you are trying to use your people to like push other people from this country out specifically to acquire that territory, right?
In a way, like you could, they also like doing way worse things. For example, like conscripting local people like against us. That's like completely fucking deranged. It's like anti-Geneva, you know, and Roman statute behavior to basically conscript Ukrainians and occupy territories and throw them to fight us. It's like, yeah, but it's not really like basically like what I'm trying to say here is that it's not as like black and white as you make it out to be, because technically if we were to just push them out, like let's say we take, I don't know, something, Mariupol or whatever the fuck, right? We take it back. And now there are majority Russians there, the people who have been during the occupation, right, brought there, and they now live there. So they are, you know, legitimately have been living there for quite some time, right? They maybe even have, I don't know, families or whatnot during like 15, 20 years, right? And now we expel them. We like toss them the fuck out back to Russia. Technically, that would be ethnic cleansing. Like by the definition, right? Because we are cleansing.
There is no actual legal definition of ethnic cleansing, just so it's clear. I'm pretty sure that does not exist in law.
In a particular group of people of a particular background.
Sure.
Or
And I
land.
might even oppose that, right? I might say, well, maybe you could do this in such a way where if you can now
Ow.
say, like, let's say when Ukraine takes this land back and is like, look, we realize you have established lives here. You've been here 5-10 years. Maybe you were part of some like, you know, ulterior like state acting
They
agenda.
They fucking hate us, people who came here. They think we're scum and we don't deserve any land we own. So what do we do with those people? It's what they think.
Well, you
most
try
of
to
them.
integrate them and you say like, look, we're, you know,
Yeah,
this is Ukraine
suicidal.
again, but like, yeah.
No, I would expel them. I would expel them, but that's a different question from ethnic states, actually.
Think that's impossible?
Yeah, that's America talk. That's suicidal behavior. You like
In what
that's
way?
one thing I really, because that's keeping
Yeah, I would expel them, but that's a different question from ethnic states, from ethnostates.
those people there. It's the recipe of having Donbass and Luhansk, of having Russia then using them for insurgents, for militia, for local conflicts that will never end. Never mind the voting.
Yeah, again, but that's not a question on ethnic ground.
Never mind that they will be then we have to give them rights then if they are part of
Because
us.
Russia actually treats Ukrainian Russian speakers the same way. They're not Russian, so it's not a thing that is based on ethnic grounds.
Right, we will have to give them voting rights. They will vote for pro-Russian candidates, and it's gonna be this fucking circus all over again. You know, that's a suicidal behavior. That's kind of why I fucking hate this America brain,
So,
because you
well,
ask people. To engage
No,
in
I understand. I
suicidal
understand what
behavior.
you're saying.
And I just think that's a completely unrelated topic to ethnostates.
Israel
So-
included, by the way. You're asking the suicide out of them
No,
by saying
I
they
disagree.
But
shouldn't
can you
preserve
flip it
their
on
own
Israel
religion.
to
I disagree.
do, like say like, hey, if you're not pushing as a Palestinian, if you're not trying to push Israeli Jews out of Israel, you're suicidal, because these people, even if they are individuals with a wide spectrum of beliefs, ultimately these people are a part of an agenda from the nationalist government to have people vote people that they want into power, who are then going to get policies that will bomb Palestinians, that will take their land. Like, this logic in my eyes is now can be turned around on Israelis to say like, yeah, Palestinians should ethnically cleanse them because if they don't, it's suicidal, right? Like, and I don't think that's justification
Yeah,
for
that's why
kicking them
but
all
that's
off the
why
land.
that's I don't support Palestinians fucking having the one state with Israel. I don't. I'm a two-stater.
Well,
I think they
hold
both
on.
have
I understand because
own
you say that would be
little
then their
ethno-state.
prescription.
Yeah.
But like, don't you see that
Oh.
like my policy here would be if Palestinians did have the right to return to integrate into Israeli society, I don't think they would be
Nickel
justified in kicking all these people out because those people might or literally have voted people into power that fuck up Palestinians. I think at that point.
Wait. Can you explain? I think I lost the
Okay,
the,
so
the
like
thread of
I'm trying to
what
make
you
like the
said.
one-to-one here, where you're like, if we go back in, is it okay to ethnically cleanse the people who have established lives here because those people might vote for things that are going to fuck up our culture and our peoples, right? Like you said that Ukrainians might have justification for then ethnically cleansing these Russians. I think in the short term, like especially if it's very short, like it's like, oh, these guys just got here, they're very clearly part of this like a government agenda. Okay, maybe there might be some room here to just be like, okay, guys, it's been a year, we're putting you back. But when they have established lives here, and no matter how different their
let's do
agendas might be,
established lives.
you agree that like it's Russian citizens, right? It's not state actors, and they might have tons of different agendas. And they
Yeah,
might
but that's completely different. We're not talking about ethnostates at this point anymore. We're talking about a completely different topic.
open to changing their minds on things and open to assimilation. I don't think.
No. Fuck them up, big time. That's fuck them up. If they live here for 20 years, even if we take the country, like if we ever take this territory back in like 30, 20 years, and they're still there, fuck them up. You know?
I don't. Yeah,
There.
but like, so
Wait,
why
what
should
was that?
Still there, fuck them up. You know?
I don't.
Yeah,
What was
20
that?
years, and they're still there, fuck them up. You know?
What was that? What?
I don't. Yeah,
There.
but like, so why shouldn't the Palestinians do that? I don't think they should, but it sounds like by that logic, if the
Wait, what?
Palestinians could ever have any,
Should Palestinians do what? I
like,
don't
if they
understand.
were
Like,
to
if they
be able
take
to
Israel,
have any sort of power in Israel and Israeli democracy,
do it.
they should.
would
No,
make
it's not
sense
about
for
they
them to.
would. I'm saying should they, and it sounds like you're saying yes, they should.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thing is that Israelis there are not really, they didn't just come in like 10 years and occupied the fucking thing, right? It has,
Yeah, but so
they have
but,
been living there
but
for.
by the logic, it's like, look, these people are going to
They're
vote for
there.
things that fuck us up.
That's the
I want.
native. That's the native country. It's not like the other way around. It's the Jews who have been tossed out of the fucking place in the first place. So you're like again conflicting those two things. Like
Well,
it's
sure. But
we are-
what
yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, a billion years ago.
What I'm saying
Mhm.
is, look, there's no question that Palestinians have.
By that logic, Slavic people should just take Berlin because they were thrown out by the Germanic tribes. Did you know that Berlin is a Slavic name? Like by that weird logic, then just the Slavs should just push Germans out of Berlin because they were thrown out of there 1,000 years ago or some shit.
Forced off land, right? And it's like as
Yeah.
this nationalist agenda of Israel gets more and
Slavs should return to their ancestral home of Berlin.
more power, there are consequences for the Palestinian people. They lose land. A lot of them get bombed. They get pushed off of their settlements that are expanding into their territory.
Yeah, that's fucked
So
up, yeah.
by the
The
logic of
situation's
what you're
fucked up,
saying in Ukraine and Russia, it would
Mhm.
seem to me that like it would be justified. And I don't agree with it. I don't want this to happen. But that if the Palestinians were somehow able to get any amount of power back from any of this land or be able to participate in the democracy, they should ethnically cleanse the Jews because it's like, oh, the Jews, if they get power, they're going to kill us
Push
and they're
them
going to take our
there,
land,
bro.
right? But I
Push them
think
there.
that
They don't
Huh?
have a. I can push Russians. I can push. We can push Russians, that right settlers that came in to Russia. Where are you pushing Israelis to?
so the only difference here
They
is
don't have
not
another
the
country.
ethnically cleansing would be okay if, let's just say, there was like Israel too, and it's like, okay, as long as you guys all go back to Israel too,
Yeah,
then
then they would be fucking settlers that you all call them to be. That they're not. Don't tell them to return to Brooklyn. By the way, anti-Semitic as fuck. I heard you say that. You're not getting a pass. Okay?
that
even
was
though you're
that
Jew.
was in frustration of like, damn, I really
Yeah,
wish they
I'm
didn't make
joking.
Israel
Yeah.
in Israel. I wish they
Yeah.
had made it in Brooklyn. Not they should all go back now.
Yeah, you don't have. Where do you push them? To the sea, as they say.
Well, yeah,
Like,
if there's no
where
place
do
to
you put
go,
them?
I understand this, but like, I don't
Yes,
think this is
they're
the
there.
determining factor as to whether or not they should do it, right? Because I don't think it's like in the scenario where they could go back to Russia, and I'm not like, oh, and if they've lived here for 20 years and there's a potential for like integration here, like we should just say fuck you. Like
I mean, by the way, if there are people there, right? There are particular people.
Lucy,
I mean, it's
hello,
a messy
Fortune.
ass process. I will, I don't want to even to deal with that nonsense. It will always be messy and fucking look bad if we do that, right? That's why they settled them there as well, by the way. That's also one of the reasons, because if you want to push them out, then it will always look fucking bad, no matter how you do it, right? Especially to the gentle, fucking infantile Western mind, it would be extremely awful, and everyone would be saying, Ukraine is doing ethnic cleansing, all that dog shit, right? But a point is that there might be people like Russian people who came in there, and then they will be like, well, I want to stay here, I want to stay even if it's Ukraine. I want to, still remain in like whatever the fuck, Mariupol, Melitopol, whatever it is. But that was built on the bones of Ukrainian people that they killed or tossed out prior. And also they came to the illegally occupied territory, knowing that is occupied, to live there. They're not some like stupid ass zombies, right? They know that Russia occupied this and that used to be Ukraine. They came to Mariupol.
But again, it's a completely different question from ethnostates.
Burnt to crisp.
A completely different
They
conversation
saw that
now.
during the rebuilding process that they were doing there, right? So they know exactly where they came. They know exactly that they got the apartments of the people who they killed. So should I like super sympathetic or risk my country and the national integrity of us, the wrong side in this, to maybe toss out 1 or 2 people who would be chill if they stayed? Or like a dozen of people, 100 of people? This is a calculation, nasty one that you have to make, but you have to make it. Are they worth it? Can there be people who can be chill and live there? Maybe. Like, I'm not gonna say like that all of them 100% demons, but yeah, it's just the calculation you have to make.
Right.
Yeah, but that's,
I understand.
Again, that's a
by the way,
separate
the logic
topic.
isn't lost on me at all. It's just the issue I have morally with the idea of like, if that was the only option, okay, cool. Because
oh my god, we're conceding so many different topics. This conversation is just all over the place. Swear to God. I swear to God. Swear to God. Swear to me.
if they don't, like, Russians are going to be able to have justification when they try to come back and steal this land back in 20 years. Okay. But the fact that you're like, well, is it okay to fuck over 1 or 2? Like, where do you draw the line of how many people who clearly are individuals am I willing to fuck over to have a more broad policy of discrimination, knowing that, like, it's like, hey, I'm not going to let X amount of Mexicans into my country, because no matter how many individuals of there that would be perfectly acceptable to me if I looked at this on a case-by-case basis, ultimately, I think that they'll make my country worse if they're still here. Like, that to me is where the moral, failing here of like is the utilitarian potential. Yeah.
Listen, that's why you have to look at the case-by-case sort of basis here, like, because there are so many...
the Russian thing has nothing to do with preserving an ethnic hegemony or an ethnostate. It's just a completely different context, completely different situation that has nothing to do with ethnostate.
Factors in, right? You can't just... that's kind of why I have the problem with what you said at the end of the day. It's not that I don't see your logic or that I don't see your reasoning. I do, obviously, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be bothering to talk with you. But it's just that I think the main mistake you make is not your reasoning, is that you apply it to literally everything. Like, it's a maximalist, very broad position without taking into account quite a bit of a nuance, because like the example of that I brought up to you about Ukraine is not at all similar to the example of, I don't know, France randomly nuking Arabs from their country because they, ethnically cleansing them to be French. Like, it's not the same, right? Those are 2 different things. But
right.
Like,
and I'm glad we had this example of like a state agenda, right? Because that does make it a lot different.
Yes, of course it is. But it's also the people agenda. It's not just the state. Like, it's not that the Russians are like absolutely free from like, imagine yourself like a Russian like that. You live in, I don't know, some fucking bumps fucking hole in Russia, like, I don't know, Syktyvkar or some shit.
Again,
right?
we're talking about a imperialist project that has nothing to do with ethnostates.
Getting a proposal to live in Mariupol near the sea. The city will be rebuilt. You will get like a better apartment that you have now for much cheaper. And you're like, yeah, like, they killed Ukrainians there, and it's like they steal their land and it's occupied, but like, it sounds based, like, I will go there. So you do understand what kind of person you have to be to even make that choice. Either you are extremely poor desperate, which the case, they do use people like that in the army, unfortunately, quite a bit, and or you have to be absolutely immoral cunt that doesn't care,
Yeah,
and
and don't you think, like, instead of having a broad policy that will fuck over the people who aren't immoral, it would be okay to try to have programs and ways of assessing this and making sure a state government.
How do you assess who's lying and who's not?
It's
Like,
not
for
about
example,
lying. Like,
here
I'm not
comes
saying we like literally have like a poll where we test their ideology, but it's like that's why I don't support a policy. It's just, and then we'll kick them all out just in case. It's all right. Let's try to incentivize the people who have.
Okay, again, this is a completely different discussion from the topic.
Disagree with, to work with us, and then if there's people that are
you can
part
only do that if you are in power to do that, if you are powered up to do that, if it's not a big risk to you, right?
Yeah.
So if we had zero risk of Russians attacking us again, or like a very low risk, let's not go zero, let's go like just quite low, right? And we're not fighting with a country 30 times our fucking size that tried to destroy us like
Yeah, again, this has nothing to do with the subject of ethnostates. Nothing.
times during our history, right? And occupied us like 5 times by now. So yeah, it's just, if we were in that position, then yes, we should maybe make moves like that. But we're not in that position, and we'll never will be. So why the fuck should I risk my people to my sovereignty, risk our nation?
Yeah, for the potential like individuals who would be good. I understand. So
like,
I guess
settle for them, but like whatever.
So
You know,
I see a
in the
question in
grand scheme
chat
of
that's a
things.
little more of an extreme example of a
Okay,
question I want to ask, where it's like, because when you said like I'm okay with fucking over like the 1 or 2 like non-immoral people here, but someone in chat's like, what to what extent, or like where this is maybe a little unfair, but like where is the line drawn? Like if you had to fuck over 1 million people for what you think is the sake of your country, right? If you had to fuck over like,
I mean,
10 million people,
by definition here, depends of how what fucking off for fucking me we mean. I don't support obviously killing them. I don't support any of that. But like, yeah. But point is, just to make it clear that I don't mean we should kill those people. But just in case. But like, yeah, it's just that they are by default already immoral because they came there. So it's not
immoral
like
just from coming.
Yes.
Well, but like you said, like some of these people are
about
like poor, maybe they have no other choice, and Russians are exploiting their situation, and so like from their perspective, it's like, okay, I have nothing here, now I have something. Maybe I'm the pawn of a state, but like, why should I get fucked over just because the state tried to use me to assimilate your country?
That's immoral. That's immoral. Even if you're poor, that's immoral. Yeah, sure, you're more incentivized because you're poor. I can understand that. Like there are some fuckers who came there like just because they're fucking assholes, basically, who'll enjoy imperialist colonialist projects because they hate Ukraine, right? And they think they have a right to us. But at the end of the day, even if I'm poor, that's not my problem. That's not my problem. They're poor. That's not the problem of my country and of my nation if they're poor in Russia and they decide to come here and steal and live on people's bones. Don't give a fuck. I have friends who saw Russians live in their apartments now. Do you imagine how that feels? You have been left, you have been tossed out, like running for your life.
Yeah, but again, this is a separate topic from ethnostates, a completely separate one. Like they can talk about Russian imperialism is a separate topic from ethnostates. Lucy, duck, yeah.
Fucking neighbors.
I don't have to duck. There's no air siren at the moment. It seems like tomorrow will be calm during the Russian parade, but there's been a risk. It seems like Zelensky has signed a document that says that they will leave the Russian parade alone. Ukraine will leave the Russian parade alone. Because there was a risk that if Ukraine disrupted the Russian parade, then Russia would just throw, 1 billion bombs and drones on Kyiv. And I've actually been advised, hey, if Ukraine does something on the march, go to a bunker. Go to a shelter. I've been told to go to a shelter if something happens. But it seems that nothing will, so. Maya Mayor says, when was the last time they talked about ethnostates and not nations? I can't tell anymore. Yeah, and it's also that not only do they conflate nations and ethnicities, they also are talking about Russian imperialism on top of that, which is a completely separate thing.
and your dog and your mom get like shot in the fucking face, and then you see fucking Russians posting Instagram videos of them posing in the apartments that used to be yours.
Yeah,
Like,
and,
why
and to be
should
clear,
I
that's
put
why like I
them?
think the time matters.
I mean, that is what Israeli soldiers do, by the way. Interestingly enough, that is what Israeli soldiers did in Gaza. They posed in apartments that were destroyed and they made fun of people's underwear or something.
Matters, right? Like, because if you're gonna
Of course.
like say the Native Americans, you know, like, oh, I'm upset, I see the soy pill, he's on like a lonely land right now, and it's like that used to be my ancestors, versus like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you
Yeah,
just
like,
got here. I do
it's
think
been
these things are
couple
different.
years ago. Of course, there can be point to be made. Of course, right? There is a point to be made. I will concede that at least. That if, for example, if we didn't take it, I don't know, 100 years has passed, be quite different now. I guess in many sense.
But
Yeah,
that's the
it's a
thing is like
different
there's not an
situation.
exact cutoff for this, and like this
No,
whole
there's
like
not. There's not, of course,
retributive
yeah.
like what's the word I'm looking for, like this like back and forth, like kind of like
I mean,
revenge,
as
like
interesting as it is, it has nothing to do with the topic of ethnostates.
there.
It's a complex situation. It's a very complex situation. You can't really, for example, like I don't know how much you know about Nagorno-Karabakh with Azerbaijan, Armenia whole situation that happened recently. That basically nobody cares, but they did toss the fuck out the fucking Armenians there now, Azerbaijani people, you know, and they have been like back and forth, and they have been fighting who is in control, who is in the majority there, based
We
rounds
all
again,
know
right?
about this.
But the recent Azerbaijani took Nagorno-Karabakh, and Russia was not able. Russia, as an ally of Armenia, was not able really to defend them or didn't give a fuck because they were bogged down here and they just simply didn't care basically to assist their allies. I guess same with Syria and Assad and shit like that. So they just tossed the people the fuck out, and like it happens,
This is making me think now, like, how do I phrase this? Like, okay, so it's like, okay, obviously we already were on the presupposition that the ethnic cleansing would be bad, if like from the Palestinians doing this to Israelis, but like part of this to you is like because they where are they pushing them back to, versus in the Russia case it's like I'm pushing these Russian settlers that were actors of the state.
Just to
Like,
make
I don't think ethnically cleansing 3 million Germans was okay at the end of World War II, by the way, just because they were pushed to Germany. Or I don't think that it was just okay for Stalin to ethnically cleanse Polish people just because there was a Poland to push them to. And I don't think that the Operation Vistula was okay as either.
very clear is
Yeah.
to if you're doing this against settler colonialist fucking invaders, that's a little bit more morally justified, to put it mildly.
so
But
you're right.
yeah, in the
Let me
case-
ask.
But again, this is a completely different topic from ethnostates.
I'm not prescribing this to you, but
Yeah.
like, so Palestinians being like, okay, West Bank, Gaza, Israeli settlers, kicking them
But
out.
yeah,
back
I
into
think
Israel,
Operation
this would
Vistula was bad.
be like more
yeah, kick
morally
those fuckers
justified.
out. Yeah,
Right.
fuck
Okay.
him. I don't
Okay.
care about those guys. Like,
Okay.
fuck him up big time, actually.
But
Do
I
whatever
was
the fuck you want.
also to flip this, like,
Yeah.
where do the Palestinians go? Like, if they keep getting pushed out, right? Like, there's no Palestine to return back to. It's not like
I don't support settlers whatsoever. I think they are fucking legitimate target. They should be fucked big time. Israeli
right.
ones.
Well,
I mean.
what I'm saying is, like,
yeah.
from their point of view, the country of Israel is that. This is like, oh, whoop, the Jews came
Yeah,
in and made a
it's
settlement
that.
and pushed us out, and now we have nowhere to go, right?
Yeah, but that's like, first of all, it's not really quite the case in the sense that if there were not 2 million Arabs living in Israel, I would say maybe, But you can get a citizenship, and they do, and they live, the non-Jews. There are 2 million people there. It's quite a bit in a small country.
Then they don't have the same rights as Jewish citizens, so that's not really a point.
This,
Yeah, but the
So it's-
Palestinians can't do that.
I mean, you mean the one in the occupation right now?
Yeah.
Or that's the problem. That's the occupation problem. That's why Israel is fucked up in the head because of that. Not because they're fucking settler colonial Brooklyn guys, as you guys like to say, but because they have permanent occupation.
No, the 2 million also don't have the same rights. Let me see. Do the 2 million Arab Israel citizens have same rights as Jewish citizens? Face significant legal, socioeconomic, and structural discrimination. While they hold Israeli passports and serve in the Knesset, they often experience disparities in funding, housing, and job opportunities. Legal and political equality. Arab citizens can vote, run for office, and serve in the judiciary. Unlike most Jewish citizens, they are not required to serve in the IDF. Discrimination and disparities. Arab municipalities receive less government funding, and Arab citizens often face discrimination in housing and employment. The nation-state law. The law designates Israel as the national homeland of the Jewish people and downgraded Arabic from unofficial language, which is widely seen as reducing Arab citizens to second-tier status. There you go. Boom. There you go. So no, that's not an argument.
That's insanity. That shouldn't be happening. Obviously, you can't have people not be part of your country, but also not be in their own country and just permanently keeping them in a fucking limbo of endless occupation. That's where the fuckery happens, really, because it will never be resolved in any normal way unless it's just mental. Of course, they need their own state, Palestinians, but problem is that their state biologic will also be an ethnostate, and you should be then opposing them, I guess,
Yeah,
because they're not
I
going to be
would
having.
if they're like, and no one else can come in. But
I mean, yeah, but that's silly to oppose. That's silly. If you lived in like Palestinians they have dreamt about their own country, like just in a way that Ukrainians for far longer. Let's be for real. But we have been fighting to have our own country before, like Lenin, Soviet Union occupation. We had 4 or 5 years of war for our independence that we lost, and then we got separated, partitioned by Polish, by the Soviet Russia, by fucking all sorts of people, Romanians and all sorts of cunts, right? And they, no offense to all my fellow Europeans, but you stabbed us in the back big time over there. But it's just
stabbed us
that
in the back. Whoa, this is Nazi rhetoric now, man.
Yeah, the Polish, they fucking always do this backstab when nobody wants it, okay? But point is that they partitioned us, right? Between each other, right? Which is kind of hilarious because then Germany and Soviet Russia and Soviet Union partitioned Poland the exact same way. But what can you do, karma? Point is that was wrong, obviously. I mean, I don't support destruction of Polish people by Germans and Soviets, obviously. But yeah, point is, jokes aside, right? Is that it's the situation there is that I understand the wanting to be your own nation and wanting to have your own safety net that hegemony provides in the countries like this.
We completely left the topic of ethnostates now. We have completely left the topic of ethnostates.
Because those are the countries who have been fighting to have their own fucking hegemony, their own fucking rights, their own fucking thing, because they have been discriminated and they have been prosecuted and they have been incredibly, slighted by everyone else. So that's a completely different thing. But with Jews, problem is with Israel is that both Jews and Palestinians are people like that. Okay, that's the problem. So we have two people that have been in that. With Russia, it's not the same. There are the imperialists, there are the big guy, they are the occupier. We never occupied them, okay? We never did anything to them historically. So
if you count the Cossacks as part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which they were, and if Ukrainian people see the Cossacks as proto-Ukrainians, then technically speaking, the Cossacks took part in the sacking of Moscow by the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which means that technically speaking, Ukrainian people have occupied Russians for a small amount of time in one point of history, depending on your interpretation of history. I've done it.
So so that's a completely different things. And that's my whole idea that I want to present to you, to your Americana brain, is to look at this from a perspective of the people.
It's a completely different subject. It has nothing to do with ethnostates, so no.
Who have justified reasons to want that hegemony, because otherwise they are at the risk, and they have been historically.
No.
It's not that they made this up, It's not like this is like some idea out of nowhere.
No, I'm sorry. Russian aggression, therefore it has to be an ethno-state, is a weak argument to me.
Because, for example, like our most epic example, like comes to me right now, is Ukraine. I don't know how much you know history about this, but there was like this idea after World War I that you basically separate pieces of land to countries based of ethnic majorities. That was actually like how it was done. So you have
and it was bad. That's why Poland. That's why the Polish-Ukrainian war happened, because Lviv was a majority Polish city.
Like ethnic majority of people in this piece of land, so this piece of land goes to this particular country.
Yeah, which is why Poland wanted Lviv and also huge parts of Lithuania.
Because so many empires collapsed and there was so many like redistribution, right, of what is there, what piece of land goes where.
Yeah.
And they made this like rule that maybe it's a good like sort of principle to just look at the ethnic makeup of
Yeah, and that led to wars.
that region and decide to where it goes, right? So that was basically how,
We're gonna talk about Lviv now?
for example, the Poland,
There you go.
at the time, Poland, when they separated us with the Soviet Union, they decided that they want that to get that way with us. So they had like this Halychina region, right? That was, and there's other regions that were like majority like Polish.
Actually, it's more complicated than that. The whole regions were actually not majority Polish, believe it or not. A whole bunch of wider regions in that area were actually majority Ukrainian, believe it or not. It's just the bigger cities were majority Polish. But if you were to do a plebiscite, which Poland was really afraid of, which is very bizarre for a Polish person, which I am to be making this argument. But if you had a plebiscite, then overall those regions actually would be majority Ukrainian, as I understand it. But the big city centers like Lviv were majority Polish and Jewish. So it's a bit more complicated than that.
And then they decide that they will also take Volyn, which wasn't majority Polish. That was majority Ukrainian. And know what happened then? You know, I don't know if
actually
you
don't.
know about Volyn massacre, but it's like
Oh,
an
okay.
extremely nasty situation when Ukrainians basically killed the fucking Poles there later.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's like a whole other thing because Polish people were occupiers there, and they were, but they were also technically the minority. There were less number of Poles there than there were Ukrainians, right? So this whole thing with like ethnic makeups and like it gets fucking messy, obviously, because people get separated with like different groups. Multiple groups claim they have the right to that land by like ethnic or whatever nationalist principle, whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, what I'm telling you though is that it's a completely different feeling and sense here, because I, as a Ukrainian, and any single Ukrainian here, has a very legitimate reason to not be wanting to be governed, or to have or do not have a majority Ukrainian population, or do not have a state of our own that is Ukrainian.
Okay, wait,
Because
Yeah, but that's a state that is Ukrainian is completely different from having an ethno-state. Those are completely two different things.
maybe
Yeah.
this can lead into like the final thing that like sparked this whole conversation, which is like there's a very clear understanding of what you just said and like that risk. And in the same way, I don't think it's completely unfounded for people in Israel to be like, well, hold on, if these people get power, they, by your logic even, might feel justified ethnically cleansing us to make sure nothing like that ever happens to them again. So like it's not like this is lost to me, like there's no way this would ever happen. And it's like obviously in the Russian example, it's like they're literally, the state of Russia is trying to enforce this and make it happen. So it's like, okay, obviously this can and will possibly be an agenda of certain peoples. But if they don't have a place to go, and the ethnic cleansing is the only thing you can do to make sure that they don't do it back to you, what's the ultimate like it's a messy situation. This Israel-Palestine is like, I'll be the first to say it's complicated. People think it's simple, but it's complicated. And it's like, it seems to me that if you think, let's say it was a 90% risk that this is going to happen if you give these people democracy and voting rights, and like you can also apply this to the
These people are lost.
Russia
both of
example. Let's say
them.
Russia didn't exist, and like these Russian settlers came from some non-state of Russia, right?
that would be so good.
Okay, if that was the case, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I understand. Like they're shahiding you
Just
every
had a
day.
pleasant
So,
thing right now. Yeah.
but it's like, okay, so it's like, okay, we will get ethnically cleansed unless we ethnically cleanse. And this to me is still an unacceptable situation to perpetuate, because you're like, hey, you said it's bullshit about this occupation, this like permanent occupation, and keeping them in limbo because they don't have a state. Well, okay, but if the only other option is that, it seems to be, because you can't give them a state, because if you do, then this will happen. Then it's like, okay, well, so there's either perpetual ethnic cleansing by the people who have more power, or there's a potential ethnic cleansing where there's maybe, in my opinion, a possibility for some sort of integration and reconciliation. But if you don't, you're just
I apologize. Can you repeat the same? You cut off for like
sure.
a
So
couple.
it seems to be the case that like you can recognize that this perpetual occupation is not an acceptable way
Yeah.
to like live long term. And
Mhm.
even if there is the threat that if these people had their state or their democracy or some sort of power in Israel, that this could
So
lead to
many,
something like
it's
what
so much
the Russia's
conflation
trying
of
to do in
different
Ukraine.
topics here.
If they don't have a place to go and
I
you
don't
can't
like
just
that.
say go back to your own country, then there's
Mhm.
either the perpetual ethnic cleansing from the people in power to say no, you can never come into our country as a large enough group and you can never have your own country and we're just going to do this forever, or the other people ethnically cleanse us, and it's like, well, both of these are unacceptable to me. How do you move forward from that? If that's like you
Well,
can recognize the injustice, but we can't. I'm not asking you to solve Israel Palestine, but it's like
yeah. I was about to say, yeah, I'm not gonna be the one. Okay, not today. The Israel Palestine will not be solved today.
Benjamin
But yeah,
Netanyahu,
the
if you're
problem.
listening, she's got the
Yeah,
answers.
yeah. If you, yeah, I got the answer. But I honestly like that's kind of why I rarely ever. This is like I am actually cursed right now that I'm talking about this because I haven't spoke about Palestine and Israel publicly pretty much at all.
Yeah.
Is exactly because of this being like such a mess ass and both sides are retarded and
Yes.
also like a bunch of
Some
people.
Palestinian and Israeli
Both sides are, oh boy.
person is watching us talk like you watch like two people on Tim Pool who are not Ukrainian experts talk about the future of your country.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't want to talk about this because of that because I hate when people speak about Ukraine knowing fuck all about it and I don't want to perpetuate that myself. So I'm
Thank
also
you.
like, I have opinions, but I don't really publicly express them. That's probably
Thank you.
the first time, and ironically, but I'm kind of doing that in a way. But
Thanks.
that's why I really wanted to bring this conversation to the ethnic state as
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a general thing that applies not just to Israel, but we ended up talking about fucking Israel, obviously, because it always happens.
Yeah, that's where it came
That's
from.
the curse. Yeah, that's why we actually need to support,
Jew,
I'm joking.
Jew.
I'm joking. Yeah, it's the Jew thing. It happens, like you can't avoid it, and unfortunately, but at the end of the day, like I personally don't really know. You spoke with Lonerbox, but who is way more educated on the subject than I ever
Oh
be.
boy.
So congrats on that. But as far as like they go, like logically to me, like the solution would be them both having their own fucking ethnostate. That would be a solution. That but problem with that,
Oh god.
of course, is that most people, as far as I know, don't really want it there. So
How about both of them having a state? Why does it have to be an ethno-state?
ask like to average Palestinian person, I'm not sure if they support two-state solution is the problem, So I can be like this fucking Ukrainian random ass who is like, yeah, that's the best solution. But at the end of the day, like it's kind of more important what they think at the end
Ukraine
of the
is
day
not
because
an
it's
ethno-state.
their place. And I believe
Okay, I have to. Ukraine itself is not an ethno-state. Ukraine is a multi-ethnic state. Oh, god.
that they are thinking of the mind that they need to have it all. That they need to have like all of Israel basically to be Palestine, right, from the river to the sea, blah blah blah, right. But if their aim was, okay, this is like completely fucked, historically a mess, like everyone has their own grievances, everyone did fucked up shit, so why don't we just get your settlers the fuck out, back to Israel. We have like a West Bank and I don't know, and Gaza be like the fucking Palestine, and the rest would be like Israel, whatever the fuck, right? And they both like live that way. If that
Yeah,
was
I think a
what they
majority of
were,
people I think are opposed to one state and they do want like this sort of two-state, maybe ethno-state, double state thing that you're talking about. But again,
I'm
not super
sure
up to
about
date
that.
on it.
I'm not sure. I heard different things, and I'm not like gonna guarantee if that's what they want, then that's also the way to do it, unironically. But unfortunately, neither Israel nor Hamas obviously would be the people to fucking enact that thing with some sort of like flip. And also the West doesn't really help in that sense, right, by propelling whatever the fuck is going on. Like we have like
Maybe I
a
should
bunch
talk
of
to
Israel
Anastasia
simps
about
now
this.
that are just full scale support Israel and everything they do in the face of Trump, for example, right. But we also have absolutely unhinged fucking leftoids and like a bunch of people who are basically advocating for the destruction of Israel as a state, which not gonna happen. I'm sorry, even if you want it, it's not gonna happen. Same with Russia. Like I might want whatever the fuck I want, but it's not happening. Okay, so there's no point in like.
Let me suggest this. Like, let's like back up
Yeah.
and say, like, would you agree with this prescription? Even though I know we're not going to see 100% eye to eye on this, you and I can agree that given certain provable state actions of trying to infiltrate, overthrow, or use their ethnic population to fuck your ethnic population and your sovereignty, that this could justify, even on the ethnic grounds, ethnic immigration restrictions, maybe even what would be called ethnic cleansing. Yeah.
Yeah, population transfer, you would say,
But
but
ethnic
you
cleansing.
can't.
We can soften it with
You
words, and
can't
like I'm
do
not
it.
trying to make it so like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
pro-genocide, but
Yeah.
like you and I agree,
No,
like,
no, no, no. Yeah,
oh, hold
I
on,
understand.
Russian state actors or companies are taking
Those are
people
different
on an
questions.
ethnic basis and moving them into this place to subvert them and to acquire and steal that land, and that
Yeah,
should
but
be
by the way,
opposed.
they're not doing that like against the people's will, okay? It's just a suggestion. They basically make the advertisement, if
Oh,
you
sure.
will,
Like a state
of
government is not like some absent thing.
Yeah.
People will either vote for
Yeah,
them.
we're not like-
I thought what is 150% of the population supports Putin. So let's be clear. They
I mean,
want this, right?
probably not, but but yeah, quite a bit of majority does
People is being sarcastic.
either conform to
Right.
it or like lukewarm support it or just doesn't give a fuck. That's why way more honest than saying all of them like fucking Putinoid with the saliva out of their mouth. But most of them are conformists and they kind of don't give a fuck at the end of the day. So
what I'm trying to get
yes,
is like
that's-
there are
yeah.
extreme examples of this where you and I would agree, like especially with provable state actions and agendas, like we can
Yes.
oppose this.
And I
My
think
issue
Israel is
comes
such an example.
from when it's on individual bases, immigration restrictions that are going to affect people without some like definitive provable agenda, but just I'm worried about preserving what I want this country to be, and therefore you can't come here. That's where my issue lies. And so,
And
I understand like there is this wide spectrum
I
of
don't
like
like
what an
this
ethnostate
discussion.
could technically be and what kind of policies
Yeah.
there could be. And
I
what
don't
I'm
like
principally
this
opposed to
discussion.
is, for most cases, I don't think these are state actors and this is going to transform the country into some ugly, disgusting thing. And I just want to make sure that when we are implementing these policies, they're very specific in like scenarios that you've laid out to me that are like, oh yeah, this is so fucking clear what is being done here versus I'm afraid of this country changing in a way I don't like, and therefore I'm going to use it to discriminate on an ethnic basis. That's what I
Those
want
are
to
two
make
diff-
sure we distinguish.
Yeah. Those are very different things, and that's why I started this conversation with basically, differentiation between the two. I personally, and I think most people, to be honest, in the world, don't really. I mean, I'm not speaking, for the most people in the world, but as far as like non-America, not the West, not the New World people are quite. I don't know, most of them will say that preserving the hegemony of your country by, for example, limiting immigration is not bad at all, so I think that's just basically a statement of a fact, whereas your second version
Even that is a separate question from countries being ethnostates, but
of it, right, where
that's also a different question from the countries being ethnostates. Actually, I don't think many people would say, oh yeah, I'm pro ethnostates.
do some fucking actions that are restricting the rights of the people who are minorities, when you are prohibiting them from participating in the government, when you basically don't allow them to even represent that ethnic group, minority group in any way, like in the government, right? And then the most extreme example would be, cleansing them. So like deporting them or just, killing them straight up or whatever the fuck, right? So there's obviously like a gradient to this thing, and it's not exactly clear.
Yeah, and I
in
would
terms of
clarify,
line.
like when I think about what if 40 million of some other country came into America and would transform it, the number there doesn't matter so much to me as for this hypothetical to happen, this probably would be some like state agenda. This probably would be some like thing to
Unlikely that they just
transform.
naturally
And I think for the most part,
will
these
come
things
around.
aren't.
Yeah.
And so because they
Yeah.
aren't that, I'm uncomfortable with saying you can't be here because this is going to transform us. I don't want that sort of kind of immigration restriction. The immigration restriction should be mostly purely based not on who you are or your ethnicity, but based on can our economy handle this right now? Does it make sense to have this amount of people inflowing with this amount of people outflowing? And I'm much more comfortable with that. So.
And I also understand that, and I kind of agree with you there. But I'm just also one thing just to say is that always try to keep in mind, I guess, when you talk about the subjects publicly. If you're like a regular American person, obviously be America-centric all you like. Nobody cares, right? It's your right. But if you are a public speaker like yourself, right, who talks about things like about the political stuff, about the geopolitical stuff, then I think it's kind of normal to ask you to at least consider that non-American perspective that is, for example, like with your type
As a non-American, I don't agree with this perspective.
logic, right? You're only thinking about, will it economically, for example, hurt my country? If it doesn't, if the migration is based in good and like simply basically assists my country, right, in a positive way, right, then what the fuck is the problem? And I would 100% agree with you. If that's the case, like I don't see a problem either, right? But it's just that it's a very, I am a most powerful country on earth and nothing can threaten me logic. And it's also the logic of the people who are based upon idea of a nation that isn't based out of shared ethnic background, that isn't based out of shared, one homogeneous identity. And no matter what white identitarians in the United States tell you, you're not a country that is based on a principle of a shared identity that isn't national. It is national identity to be American. America is a nation. When someone says to me, imagine an American, I can imagine a black guy, I can imagine a white guy, I can imagine a fucking Mexican, Latin American dude, I can imagine anyone, and they're all equally American, right?
Yeah, and I think even if they're not equally ethnic German or equally culturally German or Ukrainian or whatever, I think it should be incumbent on the country to have a very good reason to restrict it. And I don't think it's good enough to just say, if enough of these people did this, you wouldn't be like us.
I mean, again, on ethnic grounds, Anna does not make the cut.
That's not enough for me. And I understand the sentiment, and I understand that it's like you need to recontextualize and think about this, because that's why I had this conversation. I'm glad you brought this up, because this wasn't a foreign concept to me. Like I lived in Europe for a very long time. But I still think it needs to like have a more strong justification.
I will agree. Like I don't think really that we disagree in that regard at all. If your like main justification, if the person comes up to you fucking kissing or some guy, I don't know, like a guy like that, can you can go like I don't think I ever.
Okay, that's not. I don't like this. Okay, and all countries are not ethnostates. I don't like where this is going. I don't like where this has went. Not a big fan. Okay.